Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the inaugural taking of the training wheels off of the first vice chair. I have invited, I read a wonderful Chronicle article about Pastor Sean Klein. He is recently moved back to Florida. He's a young man, and he's also a Methodist. My family is Methodist. And so he also is going to be the new pastor is the new pastor at Hernando Methodist, which is where I live. So there's just way too many wonderful ties. So I invited him here to give the invocation. He has a social science degree from UCF. He has a Master of Divinity from Duke, and his wife Olivia is a physician's assistant. And we want to give you a hearty, warm welcome to Citrus County. So if you are able to stand and wish to join us for the invocation.
Join me in prayer. Holy God, you have called us all to order to serve you. You have called us to this place in realms of service, whether they be civil or within your church or as community members. Lord, I ask that you give each and every person in this room both wisdom and grace. The wisdom to make decisions in a way that is pleasing to you, and the grace to carry out those decisions in a way that is pleasing to you as well. Bless each and every one of us here as we do this work. We pray this in your name. Amen.
Amen. And now for the pledge, I would like to invite Ruthie, our chair, Ruthie Schlebaugh's daughter, Catherine Schleybaugh, to the podium to lead us in the pledge. She is a graduate of Georgia Institute of Technology with a degree in aerospace engineering. She's commissioned as a second lieutenant in the United States Space Force, our very first Space Force person here to lead the pledge. She is a developmental engineer for the Space Force. And please pass along our well wishes and our prayers to your mother.
Thank you. I'm honored to represent my mother here today. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine, and thank you, Sean. All right, Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
This is a regular meeting of the Citrus County Board of County Commissioners this 11th day of July, 2023. In attendance are First Vice Chair Holly Davis, Second Vice Chair Rebecca Bays, Commissioners Jeff Kennard and Diana Finnegan, Assistant County Administrator Maricel Rodriguez, and County Attorney Denise A. Diamond Lynn.
Thank you. All right, looking for approval of the agenda. Are there any additions or deletions?
We do, Chair. We have an additional item, E12. It is an authorization to pay Madden Media for Cincinnati Zoo expense, and that is to authorize the clerk to pay Madden Media for charges invoiced for for April, June, and July. The clerk has asked for permission to present this item at the start of regular business. The next one we have is item N3, Inverness Village IV, and that is to discuss and vote on temporary stop on new permitting for Inverness IV. The next one is additional information on B11, and that is to set a public hearing 23-24 non-ad valorem assessment rules, and that is the correction on the resolution, the correction of date on the resolution. The next one is additional information on E1G, notice of termination with Heritage Consultants, and that is a name update on the recipient termination letter and termination date. And the last one I have is additional information on E7 for the Hernando Beach Use Agreement Dragon Boat Festival 2023, and that is an update, agreement, and certificate of insurance to correct the full name. Those are all the changes to the agenda.
Okay.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
motion to approve the agenda with the addition of items and information on E12, N3, B11, E1G, and E7.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any board comments? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right. For the consent agenda, I would like to pull B4 for discussion. If you agree with me, make the
Yes.
motion that way.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda with the exception of B4 to be discussed separately.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any public comment? Any board discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Looking for a motion on B4 or not?
I'll make a motion that we approve item B4.
No second? I think it's gonna die.
Wow.
Would the board like to say anything?
Yes, I would.
Okay,
I think that's terribly unfortunate. The developer that is putting that parcel together, that development together, is set to do very good things on that. And I think that if that developer felt like a car wash on that parcel would be detrimental to the rest of his project, they would not have brought it forward. There are big things planned for that. And I don't think that a car wash on that parcel. I know the undertone, the feelings of the board about car washes. This is one very small piece of the puzzle for that piece. So I think it's unfortunate. I wish there had at least been a second for discussion, and I would have encouraged the board to support this project.
Commissioner Finnegan?
It's my understanding, Commissioner Kennard, that the car wash is not what's in question. The division out was to also add mini storage units. So if they wanted to divide the parcel, I think that there is something better that could go on 491 in that area. I think the car wash is slated to go no matter what we would decide today. I don't think we're stopping the car wash. It's just we're not allowing them to divide out that property so they can add mini storage units where the frontage would be 491.
And this is great discussion. This is exactly why we should be having this, discussion. If you look at the slide from the PDC meeting that ultimately they ended up pulling it, the proposed mini storage area is going behind the Culver's and car wash and in front of the mobile home park. So the frontage will be on that side road, not on Highway 19, or not Highway 19, Highway 491. So the mini storage units are behind frontage parcels, which is what this board has expressed that we would, if they're going to do mini storage, we don't want it along our main corridors. And that's not where it would be going. It would be going, pardon me, behind the Culver's and car wash and in front of that mobile home rental park.
So with all due respect, I'm sorry, Madam Chairman.
Yes.
I would have to look at the backup, and then on my briefing on Monday, I had questions about this, and that's not the map that I saw, and that's not the explanation that I was given.
You were wrong. Can we bring up the slide from the PDC meeting showing those parcels? Okay, so let me see here, the top right-hand corner, this slide that's outlined, the main part of this, that's the mini storage, the proposed mini storage. That is the gray piece up in the very top left-hand corner, not that dark line that's 491 to the right of the overall piece. The white piece, pardon me, the white section in between 491 and that gray piece, the top right-hand corner there is where the Culvers and car wash is at. The remaining piece of that along 491 ultimately will be subdivided for other stuff.
The location map I'm looking at in our backup shows a significant amount of frontage
Yeah,
on
this is
491 for
car
mini
wash.
storage.
This is mini storage. And this ultimately will be subdivided for very good things to come.
So staff explained to me, this is the car wash, this is the mini storage.
They were wrong. Yeah, they were wrong. The mini storage will not have frontage on 491. The only thing right now that will have frontage on 491 is the Culvers and what they're looking for right now, this tidal wave car wash. And then going south along 491 will be subdivided lots for other folks that are coming along with the overall project. The mini storage goes behind Culvers and the car wash.
May I address our administrator, please?
Yes.
Madam Administrator, I don't know about the other commissioners up here. There is some conflicting information. So I don't know if we want to have staff address this now or if it's feasible to put it at the next meeting. I'm not sure how time sensitive this is, but it seems like Mr. Kennard is not getting a second yet, and I'm a little in flux. This is completely different information, what he is pointing out and what I have been given.
We could ask Eric Landon to see if he can provide more clarification on the map.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
I'm sorry, but
we need to have a second.
I'll second his motion for discussion.
at this point, it probably needs to be a motion to reconsider or something, because it seems like you all took action on the initial question, so I don't know,
What would you like me to do legally?
there's only 4 of you. So that presents a problem because it wasn't actually voted.
Can we table it?
I don't think that's what the two that seem to want to talk about it want to do. So I think maybe you should just consider a motion and see if somebody wants to make a motion in a second.
We could table it. I don't know.
Make a motion in a second to reconsider?
No, I think you should just make a motion and second to consider the item because it wasn't actually voted on in the beginning.
Okay.
I'm missing something here. He can
She
withdraw.
just seconded it. Was that okay?
No, because the previous motion died. So if somebody wants to make a new motion.
Got it.
I see what you're saying.
Start again.
So I can make that motion again?
Make a motion to reconsider?
No,
Or no,
Just
to
make a motion.
Just make a motion that we approve item B4.
I'll second. For discussion and
All right.
possibly
All right,
tabling.
carry on, Eric.
and I'm sorry to interrupt, Madam Chair, but I don't know that Mr. Landon knows this. Commissioner Kennard has information that I didn't have before speaking to him and that I don't think Eric has either. So the information that Commissioner Kennard is bringing forward is not something that staff knew about these other things that he's talking about that are going to happen.
And I didn't intend, or my point is not that staff has intentionally misled anyone. But in discussions today, I realized that the wrong information had been presented, and it obviously had been. Like I said, the plan for this plot is that the car wash goes on 491. Any mini storage is going back behind, and going back and looking at the PDC illustrations, it clearly shows where they're planning on the mini storage back on the back part of this property, not on the 491 frontage part. back in there, yes.
And then what was here?
That area will be further subdivided for other businesses to come in there. The car wash is going on the yellow highlighted area. That's what they're looking to divide from Culver's.
So would we want to table this? Because obviously staff doesn't have this information, and I don't know that I'm prepared to vote yes as is, so somebody needs to get their information right.
I'm certainly not prepared to vote for this. However, if it came back as a cogent package that I knew what I was voting on, then provisionally I would be. You know, personally, I know that we need mini storage and I know we need car washes, but I have real heartburn about where they go in this
Sure.
county because, you know, that's going to really set the stage for how we grow. So I just really wish that this had been presented a little more accurately because I read the backup thoroughly and I was just like, oh no, that's not good.
Yeah,
So-
go
Madam
ahead.
Attorney?
I'm sorry, I'm not gonna say in defense, but if you look at the picture that was submitted, it's clearly gonna be subdivided into 3 lots. So there's going to need to be a further minor subdivision or something that the owner is gonna do in the future. So Commissioner Kennard just has information, that we don't, because they're showing 3 lots, 1, 2, and 3.
Madam Attorney, I don't think there's 3 lots. I think that lot, I was told, was Culver's as is. This was going to be the car wash, or the mini storage, and this was the car wash. So if Commissioner Kennard's correct, and we approved this for mini storage, I mean, it's not subdivided, so that means this all could be, I mean, if it's backwards from what we were told.
Just one correction is it was presented that lot 2, could you see the number lot 2?
I certainly
That
do.
was always going to be the car wash. The mini storage, we believe, was going to be on lot 3. But lot 3, I'm understanding, there's an intention to further subdivide lot 3, which is not apparent on the drawing that you have. Lot 3 is shown as 1 lot.
I received the information in the opposite,
Wow.
so we may want to. I'm
Well,
assuming
now
you
we
must have received it in the opposite also.
I thought that this section, the one down next to Culver's, was the car wash, but the rest of it was going to be mini storage. That's the information I received. Not
Interesting.
necessarily, you know. Anyway, it'd be nice if things come to us very clean and tidy and from the applicant.
Right, so the applicant for this, just a bit of history. So the parcel was all owned by one entity. The parcel was transferred as one large parcel to another entity. That other entity sold the car wash parcel, which is lot 2, to the car wash people, and kept lot 3. So the applicant of this one is the owner of lot 2.
And it's just the car wash.
Just the car wash. So the other owner of lot 3 is the owner that has these subsequent
Right.
ideas. So today, the applicant is only lot 2, which is the car wash.
And we would have an opportunity to vote on the rest of the parcel.
At a future
Yes.
time, you're gonna,
Right.
it's
Okay.
not even gone to the PDC, it was pulled from the PDC, and perhaps it was pulled from the PDC to make these additional changes that we understand may be coming.
Got it.
I just don't want anybody to think we weren't putting it all out there.
So if we, I'm sorry.
Nope,
Can
go
I-
ahead, Commissioner McGee.
If we vote on this today, the only thing we're voting on today is the car wash. That subdividing that lot for the car wash, correct?
Do you think it's both, or I'm sorry, I'm looking at
This
Eric.
isn't jiving, I'm sorry.
I think by taking action on this plat, you're creating lot 2 and 3. I know that you're carving out lot 2, but the remaining portion is a new lot which would be lot 3.
Because that's what's left.
Correct. So it's not a new lot, it's the remaining lot, but it still has new lot lines, so lot 3 is newly created with this.
I'm not getting any more comfortable with this. Commissioner Bays, you have anything?
I'm not in favor.
So from a legal standpoint, we should go forward with the vote or withdraw it to let it live again when it's more organized?
That is at your discretion. Y'all need to decide what, I mean, you can either vote on the motion that's on the floor, or you can table that motion until a subsequent.
Well, the support obviously isn't there for it, so I'll withdraw my motion. I do hope when it comes back, I guess with more accurate information, that the board would support it. It would be unfortunate for this board to tank this project.
All right. Thank you, Eric.
No, fair, he didn't get to say much.
See, and you thought BOCC meetings were boring.
What?
All right, we are not quite to time certains. So, looking for a motion for our proclamations.
Motion to approve items C1 and 2.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any public comment? Any board discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, you want to join me down front?
Will those individuals representing Smart Irrigation Month please come forward? Whereas the Board of County Commissioners of Citrus County recognizes water as a finite resource that is vital to human life, and whereas well-maintained green spaces are important to the health and well-being of communities and individuals, and whereas appropriate irrigation technology, combined with best practices, can significantly reduce water usage and runoff while creating healthy lawns, landscaping, and sports turf, and whereas the adoption of smart irrigation practices further improves water use efficiency, and whereas July is a peak month for irrigation water use, and whereas the Citrus County Department of Water Resources encourages citizens to install WaterSense labeled smart irrigation controllers for increased water efficiency, now therefore be it resolved that the Board of County Commissioners of Citrus County hereby declares that July should be designated as Smart Irrigation Month. 1, to recognize the advances of irrigation technology and practices that help raise healthy plants and increase crop yields while using water more efficiently. And 2, to encourage the adoption of smart irrigation practices to further improve water use efficiency in agricultural, residential, and commercial activities, executed this 11th day of July, 2023.
So as you may know, about 50% of Citrus County Utilities' residential water supply is used for landscape irrigation. And landscapes are a big part and a big value in our lives. We need them, but we need them to be more efficient, and we need to be smarter about how we're using our water. WaterSense labeled irrigation controllers adjust irrigation based on weather events like rain and winter and save an estimated 30% of water on the landscape. So I encourage anyone who has an automatic irrigation system to install a WaterSense labeled irrigation controller. Thank you.
Will those individuals representing Run for the Money Week for the Key Training Center please come forward? Whereas on Monday, July 17th, the Key Training Center, a nonprofit organization, will mark its 47th annual Run for the Money, which begins at the state capitol steps in Tallahassee and concludes 6 days later at the center's main campus in Lecanto, Florida, with a huge community celebration. And whereas, unlike the last several years, it is with much fanfare, anticipation, and gratitude that 2023 looks to be a more conventional live event year for Run for the Money. And whereas the grueling 180-mile run first originated in the year 1976, along with our nation's bicentennial, also held during July. The run's purpose is to bring awareness to the battles and triumphs of the intellectually and developmentally disabled and to advocate that all people deserve to live their lives with kindness, love, dignity, and respect. And whereas the run averages 30 miles a day over the 6 days, the run is equivalent to 7 Boston marathons. The annual run has now logged 13,103 miles to date due to the dedication and endurance of our many volunteer runners. And whereas the perimeter of the entire continental United States, excluding Alaska and Hawaii, only measures 10,913 miles. That means we are approaching 75% of the U.S. boundary, starting in Crystal River, Florida, heading west, then north, then east, and finally south, ending in North Carolina. And whereas the Citrus County community and surrounding areas have compassionately related to the grueling midsummer foot race as a direct correlation to helping the public understand the day-to-day difficulties and challenges faced by those served by the Key Training Center. And these are chronicled through the stories of their clients over the week. And whereas the first run's humble beginning, which raised $6,000 to the cumulative total today of $5.5 million, people continue to embrace the run for the money. This is a direct testimony to the growing understanding, support, and generosity of the community. The funds raised help the Key Training Center to provide scholarships to about 40 individuals who receive little to no state government funding for services but are on the state's waiting list. And whereas what also won't change is the Key Training Center's dedication to continuing to meet the needs of nearly 300 adults with year-round educational, vocational, recreational, and residential services in Citrus County as it has for 57 years. They welcome the community to join them this year for for this year's Under the Big Top live dinner auction on Friday, July 14th, to be held at the Chet Cole Enrichment Center. Now, therefore, the Board of County Commissioners of Citrus County, Florida, proclaims July 17th through July 22nd, 2023, as Key Training Center's Run for the Money Week in Citrus County to recognize the center's longstanding commitment to serving the developmentally disabled. Executed this 11th day of July, 2023.
So I know Doug usually has the pleasure of reading our long, lengthy proclamation each year. So Veronica, I guess it was passed off to you. He probably said, nope, not going to do it. And I think we shortened it a little bit. Just want to say thank you, commissioners, for supporting the Key Training Center and our Run for the Money proclamation. We have many of our runners here today that will be kicking off on Monday for the 180-mile run. It's interesting, though, that this has grown more in our community. We actually have a 180-mile cycler team that will start from Tallahassee later during the week. They do 70 miles a day versus our runners do about 32. Of course, everybody starts early in the morning and late in the evening because, as we know, our heat factor right now is very concerning. In addition to that, we have a group of runners. They're calling themselves the Community 180 Run, and they'll be meeting Monday through Friday at 6 in the morning, 6 in the afternoon, 6 in the evening at various locations throughout the county, and they'll be doing 3 miles each time. So anybody's welcome to do that with their goal of reaching the 180 by Friday. And then we have the virtual run where we have teams of people like myself that can't do 180. If I do a couple miles a week, I'm doing good. But I have others on my team, and our goal is to do 180 miles by the 22nd. So it's amazing how this community comes together and has supported the Run for Money and what it means in our community to persons with intellectual and developmental disabilities. So I thank you. I don't know if Chris Mulling, our Vice Chair of the Board, would like to add anything else. Okay, with that, then thank you very much.
For any of you who are not familiar with the Key Training Center, it is an absolute jewel in our community of people who give back. All of my first cousins in my family were male, except for April. And if she had made it past childhood, she would have been a wonderful Key Training student. So I get a little choked up a bit whenever we talk about Key Training Center because she was born with Down syndrome, and I believe she died at age 10. So it's an incredibly important service that they do for those citizens that have those issues. So moving on to 1:30, it is right on the money. How do you like them apples?
Nice job.
Presentation by Gene McGee, Legislative Agenda Results.
Let's start with correcting that. So it's a presentation by Sunrise Consulting Group. It's no longer just Gene McGee. I joined Sunrise Consulting Group. So let's start by introducing first my partner, Sean Foster, whom you all know, but this is kind of his official coming out to the board. We have Andrew Kalel here, who's an associate of ours. Yvette Beamer runs our entire train and makes sure all the office runs well and on time. And we're lucky to have Ash Lynn is our new intern, who I just met today and found out that she's interning with us for the summer. So we've got our firm here to report to you today. I'm going to divide it, and I'm going to talk appropriations, and Sean's going to talk policy and bills that passed. So we had a PowerPoint that's in the slide. You can call it up. I'm sure you had a chance to read it, so the last thing you want me to do is to go point by point through that. I think it's interesting that it was a $117 billion budget, and sometimes I remember back when it was nowhere near $1 billion, and now it's over 117 billion. It's a lot of money, and a lot of decisions are made on a lot of money. It was a $5 billion increase from last year. There was some question about vetoes this year. Some thought that the governor, because he was running for president, was going to veto $2, $3, $4 billion to make a point. He actually only vetoed $500 million, which was a relatively small amount. Kind of in Sean's column, of all the bills that were filed, policy bills that were filed, only 19% of those bills passed. They did do $2.7 billion in tax relief this year, so that is part of the budget that they gave back to the state of Florida. I think for us, that we care about, almost $800 million was targeted for water quality improvements, which we took advantage of here. Specifically to Citrus County, you tasked me with 3 asks to go up to the legislature and try to get funding for. And the first one was the Inverness Airport Business Park. Phase 2 of that, we had received money before. We asked for $9 million, and we were successful in getting $9 million, and that was not vetoed by the governor. So I think if there's anything that we did that was good this session, it was definitely the $9 million for the business park. That money, when it goes into the legislature, they go into subcommittees and by subject matter, and then they compete. We compete with priorities all over the state for that money, and each subcommittee is only given a certain amount of allocation that they have to spend. $9 million in our subcommittee was far and away more than double the next closest appropriation for any project in that sub. In fact, I would tell you that it may have hurt us a little bit on the next one, the multi-use path for Homosassa. We asked for 7.3, we only got 2.3. They were in the same pot. They were competing for the same money. And I think that you'll agree with me that Inverness Airport being phase 2 was a little more important to make sure that we got that fully funded. But we wanted to make a statement, and I think the legislature wanted to make a statement that they liked the Homosassa project, they liked the multi-use path, they want to fund it, so they wanted to fund it partially. And so next year I have high hopes we can go back and get the remainder of that money to finish that path. And that was the second item that you tasked us was the Halls River multi-purpose path. The third was a project that the original ask, I forget what we wanted. We wanted $3.981 million, and we decided that's what we're going to go to Tallahassee and get. And then like a month before session, DEP gave us $3.981 million for that project. So I called Ken Cheek up and I said, "You don't need that money now." And he goes, "Whoa, we need some money, cost overruns, and we don't want to give that money up." So we left the request in, but we let the legislature know that if we could get $1 million for cost overruns, that would really help us. And so we were successful in getting $1 million to go into that project. And that also was not vetoed. So the 3 projects that you task us specifically as the Board of County Commissioners to go up, I think we got the $9 million you asked for in the airport. We got 2.3 of the 7.3 on the multipurpose path, and then we got $1 million on the Southwest Reclaim project, on the Sugar Mill Woods Reclaim project, which I think that was pretty successful. Now, I know that we have certain projects, but you're a Board of County Commissioners and you care what happens in the county. So we had Sunrise track all the projects that Citrus County has, like the city of Inverness asked for things, and the city of Crystal River asked for things. Other people in the county asked for things, Save Crystal River and the Homosassa River funding. And so we presented a list of all of those things and how we did on them. And I think, generally speaking, the county did very well. We did have 2 vetoes. The Lake Salapopka money was vetoed. I'm trying hard to figure out why he singled that out to veto. And I can't give you a concrete reason yet today. I can't get it out of OPB what they had against that money. They funded the phase 1 and they didn't fund phase 2. I'll just have to stay on that to find out why they did that. Sean may have more information on why they got the trail connector for the city of Inverness. They funded one project for the city of Inverness and the governor vetoed the other project. Both were funded by the legislature. So I'm not really sure why that veto. Again, maybe Sean would have more information on that. So we asked for $4 million, or the county asked for $4 million for Crystal River and for Homosassa. Save Crystal River asked for it in Crystal River, and the Homosassa River Restoration Project asked for it in Homosassa. And you saw that Homosassa got $4 million, but Crystal River only got $2 million. Again, right before session, DEP came out and gave Save Crystal River $2 million. They funded a lot of septic to sewer project money in Homosassa. Homosassa's a little behind Crystal River, so they needed that septic to sewer money to kind of get up to the place where Save Crystal River was. So that's why there was only $2 million for Crystal River and $4 million for Homosassa. Now they could both use more money, and we'll keep chasing more money for that. But that's why there was a disparity, the 4 and 2. And again, that escaped veto and got through. The fair got money. We got money for Citrus High School Construction Academy project, which I think is popular with everyone. Livestream was successful in getting $2 million to throw into the pot for the Baker Act facility. They got $1.5 million, which is the annual operating cost to run the facility. And then there was a move from the Senate to make those appropriations recurring as opposed to non-recurring. Every year, Livestream has to go up and argue for non-recurring money. So it's like every year you've got a facility open, you have to go ask for money every year to run it, which doesn't make a lot of sense. So all the central receiving facilities around the state banded together. The Senate passed a bill that sent it over, or an appropriations request, and sent it over to the House. The House rules prohibit them from doing recurring expenditures as a member project. The Senate doesn't. The Senate sent it over and was accepted. So now Livestream's funding for operations is $1.5 million recurring. There was another $1.5 million added non-recurring for this year, and that really came at the end. So I think, by and large, we were very successful in Citrus County. I would either, if you want to do questions now on appropriations, we can wait till Sean talks policy. We can do all the questions at the end, whatever your preference is.
Board? Anyone want to ask now, or let Sean go?
Okay, well, we'll let Sean. John Foster can talk policy.
So y'all, I'm kind of smiling coming up here because the way that this was divided in this presentation, I want you to know, Gene said, I'm going to get to talk about all the good stuff, the positive stuff, right? And then you're going to come up and talk about the attack on home rule and all the unfunded state mandates. And I thank you very much for Gene for taking all the fun parts. And it really is. This is one of those years. I'm going to touch real quick on some budget items. But when we talk to folks, we go back and we try to say, you know, this was the toughest year that I really saw that local governments had. And I really want to tell you, this was the toughest year that I saw on home rule in over 23 years that I've been in the legislature. It was the toughest. But I just want to give you a couple profiles real quick on the budget, not to take anything away from Gene, but incredible how much the state budget has grown. Take this number, in 2012 and 2013, just a little bit over 10 years ago, the state budget was $70 billion. You know, Gene just told you we're inching up on almost $120 billion. But where I think the state is in really good shape, in 2019, the state's reserves were only enough for 19 days, 4%. Just kind of let that kind of settle in for a minute. I mean, if a major hurricane, we are now up to $36 billion in reserves, and obviously we can take a lot longer than we could than those 19 days that we had before. I think that's been a huge priority of this legislative delegation that you see here in Citrus County and throughout the state of Florida, and the governor says we know sooner or later we're going to get hit with hurricanes again. We're going to have, and a lot of the items that were in this budget had to be hurricane related. There was hundreds of millions of dollars sent down to Lee County to help them build. You all saw that bridge that we quickly got together, and the Publix trucks were going over down there. And I will say that is a huge emphasis that we've had continuing in the state. So some of the infamous I want to say real quick is Senator Blazing Golia Representative Masulo were amazing. Their staff and your staff to work with, and the information that we needed continually to get things for the committee staff for their appropriations, we got instantly. And that was a huge, huge turnaround for us, and we want to thank you for that, because some of the things that we got wouldn't have happened without support from you and your staff. So starting off on some of those unfunded mandates, the second one's going to be really big, 1604, but I'm going to talk about Senate Bill 170 real quick. This really relates to challenging local ordinances, and to your attorney, we're happy to provide any talking points that we can have, and also anything that came from the committee staff. This is loaded with information besides these few bullet points, and I know you're familiar with it, but one of the big ones here is the second item is really local governments must produce and post a business impact estimate prior to passing an ordinance. And some of the issues that I'm going to mention today have been tried for 2 to 3 years. They failed and they came back. And that's generally the process of the legislature, unfortunately, and this was one of them. But I said this is a really long bill, and I'm happy to provide all that information for you too afterwards. This is a really big one. There's 2 big bills that we talked about with a lot of unfunded mandates. Senate Bill 1604. I think you guys were very familiar. Some of us talked about this during session when this was being proposed a little bit. The 2 big items, I'm just going to go over the 2 bullet points just to emphasize again. It's going to increase the comp planning periods from 10-year to 20-year, and of course the other part from 5 to 10. Those are the major impacts. The last one, I kind of highlight this most importantly, it's going to remove all local government's ability, not all, removes local government's ability to require building design elements for residential dwellings and MPUs, developments. Where we kind of found out this happened, and you're going to see a lot of this legislation, and Gene and I were just saying is sometimes there's a bad actor in the senator's backyard or development that's being, and this was one of those examples. An example was a 2,000 unit development that was being proposed. A certain city was trying to tell them what color they wanted certain parts of the house to be. A state senator found out about it and said they are not going to deem exactly what color these things should happen. That'll happen at a homeowners association. So I just want to kind of give, it's kind of interesting when you peel the onion back how some of these things happen. We're going to go to the next one real quick. And like I said, this is a 95-page bill. We're more than welcome to give you the staff analysis on this and provide to your staff. This was a huge one. The next 2 here, another one, HB 89, building construction. It's going to prohibit local governments, see the word prohibit a second time right here, prohibit local governments from making substantive changes to building plans after a building permit has been issued, unless such changes are required under the building code and fire prevention. If a local government makes changes to building designs after a permit has been issued by local governments, they must identify in writing what does not conform to the applicable code. This was also part of a bill that was proposed 2 years ago. The next one, obviously, a lot of issues had been discussed about emergency management. And one of the things you wouldn't be surprised what they found down in Lee County, you all have to have a disaster plan. You have to know who's going to pick up the trees, who's going to help you during the disaster. Well, down there, the emergency management found out they started running in, and all these companies and all this, they were all using, the cities and the counties were using some of the same companies. They were pulling on the same folks to come in and help, and there was obviously the state had actually come in and helped them. And so this was one of the issues they were going to put in here is local governments cannot prevent, this was a big one, someone placing a temporary living structure on their property for 36 months after the storm. The Florida League of Cities and the Florida Association of Counties tried to get them to keep this down to about 12 months. There was a possible amendment to 24 and it ended up at 36. The next 2 items, I think you should kind of see these real quick, is can increase building fees until October 2024. Even though there was a study that was happening, we were trying to hope that they would do the study first before they put the implementation of keeping the building fees from going up until 2024. See, Gene got all the good stuff. No talking, no smiles during mine, I say, you know. HB 949, this is really just a clarification for golf carts. This does not do anything with folks from the homeowners association. This is when, of course, a person of age 14 or older, it's going to be changing things, goes out into a road that is maintained by the city, state, or county. Before the passage of this bill, someone could operate a golf cart without a license and be of the age of 14. Now, no one may operate a golf cart without at least a valid learner's permit So again, this does not implement those who are in a homeowners association, those who are not, even though I should change it. Some of those who do live in HOA, who those roads are provided by the county or cities, that it would be part of it. Just those who maintain their own roads would not. Enforcement of school zones. So this one here is a bill, and I definitely want to give you the bill analysis on this if you all choose to implement it, because it definitely clarifies on where the dollars go if you choose to do this. Kind of interesting that we did this, but a couple of years back we were attacking everything that had to do with red light cameras, and now we're allowing implementation, but we understand the safety issue. $60 of this, I think it's total $180. Was it 180? I think it was 180. Of the 180 stays with the county when they do that. A third of the remainder stays with the schools to hire school bus drivers and those helping with crossing the streets, so it would help to retain them and also hire them. A small amount, about $12, would go to the state. This is all done by camera. This would all be done by camera if you chose. And the state did not say what the county had to do with their $60. That $60, if you chose to do it, would go into the general revenue, so no specific trust funds. 1373, we're getting pretty close here, I apologize. An interesting bill, basically saying, again, remember bad actors we were saying about some of the counties. If you chose that you wanted to put forth a program in a department that wanted to get more people to register to vote, you can't do that now under this, under what's other jobs or under qualified constitutional officers. They could actually bring action against you in the count if you violate this. You haven't violated this, but this is one of those, Gene and I looked at them like, why did they do this bill? It came down to one or two counties who were trying to implement some of these policies. The last one, and I kind of take a big sigh, this is the Live Local Act. I know you all have heard this one. There's positive, that there's good and bad through this. I'm going to go through it. You see the big numbers. I'm not going to repeat all the numbers in front of you. We are getting more money through sale. We're getting more money through SHIP. But let me just give you a number. If we would get all the number that was in the trust fund for the past 10 years, we would be at $2.9 billion for the state. So even though we're getting higher numbers, they're still taking out of that trust fund and they're putting into general revenue. Now, I'm supposed to tell you that this is a gift and this is great, but I always think that we should get everything that goes into that trust fund, not partial out of it, not 75, not 80%. A couple of the programs that are new, $100 million loan program you see there, alleviating inflation-related cost increases for current affordable housing projects. As you know, the costs are going up on wood and every other item, so this is going to go and help a lot of that. Provides $100 million to establish the Florida Hometown Hero Down Payment Assistance Program. And the big one on the other side, I've kind of highlighted there. I wanted you just to read this to you. It preempts local government's ability to require zoning, density, and height for new affordable multifamily rental projects in commercial, industrial, and mixed-use zoned areas. So what does that say? This has been a huge outcry for the Florida Association of Counties. This is one of the items that I would say they are going to push and they want to come back and see modified. This may benefit some counties like Orange County, Hillsborough, Miami-Dade, who are larger and really have this need. What I really am, it's unfortunate they did not do was actually do a study first and say, what is the available affordable housing you have in Citrus County? What is the available housing units that you have? Is there actually a need to allow a developer to come in and to take an area that you were going to use for industrial, which you were going to plan to have the funds available for the next 30 years, and then lose it? So if a developer did this and turned that into affordable housing, there's a couple of things they're going to get. They're not going to have any sales tax on any of the items that they buy, so they're going to have that 7 to 8% already there, and then they're not going to have to pay that ad valorem tax for up to 30 years. And but then at the same time, they want you to provide benefits to encourage folks to do affordable housing. So I will say, out of the group up in Tallahassee, we were thinking that, we thought if you want us to provide these, then provide the funding for it. So we talked a lot about the unfunded mandates. This is one of those unfunded mandates. I would, of the two bills, this is going to be definitely one of them. We're going to come back next year, and that you're going to see them target to try to say we may make a knee-jerk reaction. But the negative part here, I'll just say, and I'll end it, is this was the Senate president's priority. And, so I think you all understand, when she was committed to that and promised that, we kind of saw this thing going through as a train that was not going to be stopped. So it was very unfortunate.
Thank you, Sean. He stole some of my thunder. I wanted to say the reason that we are so successful in Tallahassee as a Sunrise Group is really the 4 of you, 5 of you here, because you all visited Tallahassee. You all used your relationships and your network to help influence our priorities. Same with staff. I mean, from Steve Howard on down, I call Ken Cheek, Walt Eastman. I mean, staff is excellent about helping us. This community, the chamber goes to Tallahassee in force with the community and really lobbies like really no other county. I mean, for a county our size, no one's even close.
After I saw what your county did, we went back and told several others, you need to see what Citrus County did, by the way. They did
Right,
an amazing
exactly.
job.
And we're kind of famous for that. Our representative, Masulo, is now in leadership, and he has large sway in Tallahassee. I mean, we ride him a lot. Senator Ingolia, even though he's new to the Senate and might not have the clout that Representative Masulo has in the House, he's pretty tight with the governor. And I would say he saved the veto pen on us on a couple of items that he kind of tucked us under his wing. So we're extremely fortunate with what we have going here, with the effort that you guys put in, the relationships you have. Our job is to keep it coordinated and fill in with our relationships where there may be a gap. And so we're very happy. And so I know when y'all start talking, you don't like to stop talking. So I will just say that the other item on the agenda is to rehire us or go out for bid or whatever you want to do. I would say that we're very happy with the relationship with the county. We enjoy working with you. We enjoy working with the staff. We live here. We love this community, and we enjoy and are proud to represent them. And if you're happy with what we do, we would love to be rehired. And with that, we'll take questions. That way you guys can start, and we can sit down, or we can answer your questions and then sit down. However you want to do it.
I can
Oh,
start.
good.
I just want to say thank you. This is a lot of money, and thank you for the opportunity. I got to see both of you in Tallahassee and being the new commissioner, showing the ropes and meeting a lot of new people. I think that it's both of you, and gosh, Sean, I saw you in a different capacity working it up there, 25 years ago, maybe. It's who you are. There's not a lot of maybe others like you that are so caring in your community and honest, and you have real relationships, and that's all to the benefit of Citrus County. And I'm so thankful that we have you, and we have a chance to have you again. Thank you both.
Thank you.
I would second that motion, and I will when it comes up.
And I would say the same for Mr. McGee in Citrus County. He's put a lot of his heart and soul into various community projects, and we thank you for that.
Thank you.
Gene, you and I have known each other for many years, and Sean, I've just gotten to know you. I appreciate the work that you do in Tallahassee and in Citrus County.
Thank you.
Guess I should have turned my mic on.
We heard it.
Madam Chair,
We heard the good stuff.
Yes.
I will be willing to make that motion. I have to put my glasses on to see how they have it written here. To approve the contract with Sunrise Consulting Group with the same terms, conditions, and fees as stated in our previous agreement. And I authorize and approve the chair to execute the agreement between Citrus County and Sunrise Consulting Group.
I'll second.
After it's approved by the county's attorney office is what mine says. All right.
Yes, adding that.
Is there any public comment? Is there any board discussion?
I have a comment.
Commissioner Bays?
Gene, Sean, this has nothing to do with you, but for me personally, it's a policy issue for me that I have said this to staff and my fellow board members. For the sake of optics and what I think is the right thing to do for the taxpayers of the county, I don't mind supporting this today, but this is really kind of one of those things that I feel very passionate about, and it's not about you, it's about all contracts. I think that we have an obligation to look at contracts on a procurement level or going out for a request for proposal on some sort of a schedule. I don't know what our policy is. I haven't been on the board to know what that is, but I do think it is important for this board and for our citizens on a routine basis to go out for bids on things just to see what it looks like, because I think we owe that to our taxpayers and our citizens.
Any other board comment?
Well, I would agree with that in most other contracts. If Sunrise Consulting were building our buildings or providing electrical or mowing the grass, There's plenty of other people, especially locally, that could do that, but I think this is all about understanding our community and building and already built relationships. And we could bid that out, but we're not gonna have that. We're not gonna have the years of work and relationships. And I mean, the money says it all. I mean, what you all did in conjunction with our elected officials in Tallahassee was amazing. And I'm just very appreciative. And I'm appreciative not only for myself as a board member, but as a taxpayer of Citrus County. And I feel like that is what saves taxpayers money. Getting this group for such I think a good price, if you don't mind me saying, is saving taxpayer money because we're getting that, through appropriations from Tallahassee. My motion still stands.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Finnegan. I'll comment, but Commissioner Kennard, do you have any comments?
No, well, I would echo Commissioner Finnegan's comments. Yes, there's a price tag to be dealt with. Going out to bid may or may not save $1, but it takes years to build the relationships, both in Tallahassee, here at home, not just with the board, with staff, with administration, but also with the local chamber members. As has been noted many times, it's that collective group of people going to, including the commissioners, going to Tallahassee, everybody singing from the same page, everybody singing the same song is what brings home these millions and millions of dollars every year. We are getting a lot of projects funded at very high levels in front of much larger, probably much more wealthy communities than what Citrus County is. And we've done extraordinarily well with the group representing us in Tallahassee. So I will be more than happy to support this motion.
So the seal behind me, it has a little tagline, 3 words, that was, I guess, a tagline many, many, many years ago for our county. And it says, Florida's Little Giant. And I think that the amount of money that we bring home from Tallahassee as a group effort is exactly what Commissioner Finnegan and Kennard have stated, is that it is a relationship and group effort to do that. There is a difference. My company is a service-oriented business, and knowing things inside and out and the relationship with our clients is everything. This is not paving. This is not building, those are things that you can put line items down, that on building materials and so forth. And then typically the low bid is going to win on that. This is different. And so I agree that normally I would be in favor of putting it out to bid. I would say the only way that I would be in favor of putting it out to bid is if it's a very long-term contract. And so the problem is, though, is that, right now we can actually not renew them year after year if you guys suddenly start doing a bad job versus being stuck with you for 3 years. So any further board discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right. That's our only time certain. So we're going to go to open to the public, right, Marisol? All right. Would anybody like to address the board at this time? You have 3 minutes. You need to fill out a green card. Watch the timer. Hopefully it'll go yellow with 1 minute to go. And welcome.
My name is Dennis Bailey. I'm owner of Bailey Electric and Signs, along with my partner
Not working.
Karen.
Hang on just 1 second.
Yep.
I'm so sorry.
Nope,
There's an on.
don't give me extra time. I know.
Hurry, keep talking, Dennis.
Yeah, really.
Just make sure you got Amber on for a minute. Okay.
Permitting. We went to a new system because we had to. Understandable. The way it got shoved down our throats, a little tough. I have had permits since before the new system was put in that I still do not have issued. I'm a small electrical contractor. I got $50,000 sitting in a hole, just me, waiting because I can't collect my money because I can't complete my jobs because the permits are still sitting in there. I know some of the board members have been brought up with some of my constituents that I work with. She has not had power since October. She was not given all the correct information until I put my permit in and found out a lot of things. She still sits without power in her property because her flood stage, which we just found out, is about a foot short. But we can't prove it yet. So there's issues. But it took me 3 months because no flood reviews are being done. Things are sitting on somebody's desk. When the new system was put in, not one new permit was done unless it was emergent, called in saying we need this right now because people don't have power. Permits were not done. They sat. I was told this personally directly. No permits were touched unless it was an old permit that was being brought into the new system or it was an emergent. Like I said, I have permits that have been sitting in the county waiting to be issued for months. It's costing me money. Pulling it out of my pocket to keep things running. I will not be happy if it does. We need to either get the people in the permitting office. We pulled in inspectors, got all the permits inspected. We're still not getting permits issued. We don't have the personnel in there. We were supposed to bring in permit techs, from what I read in the paper. And I'm asking, not knowing, was it done? It doesn't appear so. And if it was, they're not doing us any good because we're still not getting permits. What is the backlog? What is the holdup on getting permits issued to get people so we can go back to work? You wonder why permits are not being pulled? People are doing things illegally. It's because they have to sit there and wait. They're not going to do it straight out if they can. Thank you.
Hello, Commissioners. Thank you for all you do. I see there are 2 seats opening on the TDC board, and I didn't see where there's a deadline date for the nomination.
I'm sorry, you need to state your name for the record,
Michael
Mr. O'Connell.
from Floral City. I don't see a date for the application deadline or for the nomination. I was just wondering if your staff or the commission could let us know what those deadlines are. I've attended a few meetings and I am interested in applying. I'd also like to briefly touch on the subject of the proposed new homeless center in Citrus County as outlined in the July 6th Chronicle article, and just to describe some things that occurred in the past several years in St. Augustine and the nearby city of Palm Coast, cities I formerly lived in between. For 30 years, cities have been offering homeless people free bus tickets to relocate elsewhere. In 2018, these cities became destination favorites of the homeless, so much so that the city of St. Augustine severed ties with Greyhound as the city began to overflow with homeless individuals. In Palm Coast, on library property, a large group of homeless settled behind the building. Members of the settlement frequently use the building bathrooms for bathing and other sanitary needs. On hot and cold days, the library served as a convenient place to loiter around in to escape uncomfortable weather. After enough public outcry, the city council, out of desperation, concocted a plan to bus the campers by day to a fish camp on the west side of the county, and then pick them up and return them each evening. When the nearby residents of the fish camp learned of it, they took to Facebook posting their plan to take to the streets, protest, and even block roads to prevent the buses from reaching the camp. The city backed down. To my knowledge, the homeless encampment has not been resolved. At one point, the city workers went through the encampment after a forced resettlement to another site on the same property to clean up the mess and to mow. They cleaned up, among other things, buckets filled with hypodermic needles. Researching this briefly, I've discovered that whenever the public sector gets involved, as opposed to churches and private charitable efforts, the government, unfortunately, has a tendency, no matter how well-intentioned, to make the problem worse and create a culture of dependency, while ignoring the root causes that fuel homelessness, like drug addiction, mental illness, the breakdown of the family, and the open border. While I do recognize the importance of assisting those experiencing homelessness, we must evaluate the potential disastrous consequences. The impact to our county cannot be underestimated. Thank you.
Okay, Josh, the pressure is on. The last two finished right at the buzzer.
I
Let's see if
usually
you can
don't
stick
take-
the
I
landing.
usually don't take all the time. Josh Wooten, President, CEO of the Citrus County Chamber. I'm here for two reasons today. One was to see Catherine do that wonderful pledge in her uniform. That was so awesome. And secondly, to talk about permitting. And I think Mr. Bailey hit the nail on the head. This is an economic engine that's sputtering right now because people aren't getting in a timely manner. I'm not here to assign blame. I've talked to a couple of you commissioners about it. You've been very responsive. Mr. Howard's been very responsive, but I wanted in a public meeting to hear that the commissioners are urging staff to do everything they can to get this resolved. And whether it's a programming failure of the, if the system's not working, admit it and move on, or if you don't have the proper staff that knows how to work the system, move some people around, but it's got to be done. I was just at a groundbreaking this morning for the Diocese of St. Pete, the 18 affordable units behind Daystar. I think most of y'all are familiar with that. And the bishop stood up and praised everybody that had to do with everything, from the landscaper to the builder to the architect to his board. And then at the end, he said, we have 18 families waiting. All they're waiting for is a CO. And I was kind of slumped down in my seat, So I don't know why he's waiting on the CO, but from what I'm hearing from other builders is that becomes a problem. So I'm not going to stand up here and say people are doing anything wrong, but I will stand up here and say that there's an issue. And I went through this in my office where we went to a completely different system. And change is difficult, and I found out invoices weren't going out in a proper manner, and I brought all my people into a room, and I said, don't do anything else until you get this fixed, and maybe it's time for something along those lines. But I know that y'all are concerned, and I know that the staff is trying, but we really need to get this resolved. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh.
Good afternoon, Chair. My name is Joshua Hicks, resident business owner in Homosassa. I'd like to talk about permitting. Just kidding. There's a feeling that an individual gets when experiencing the unification of a community, and I just thank you all for that. There's a huge group of individuals that make up a figurative circle that create the functionality of our community, and I am just so proud of our community for all that we've accomplished and where our future is going to go. And Chair, I would like to, I know that your father, Tom Davis, and others are looking down on you now and proud of you, as well as all of you, for what you're doing. And if we can unify our community through those good feelings, that's important for our longevity. So I appreciate my community for working hand in hand with you. And thank you. Keep on focused. And despite all the difficulties in our future and our unpredictable future, just keep doing what is naturally you. So thank you for that. And congratulations.
Thank you, Josh. Anyone else to speak it open to the public? Welcome, Mr. Jones.
Thank you. Yeah, Art Jones up in Dunellen, and I have a handout. Did you get it for the Stony
Yes,
Point
sir.
proposal? I bought Stony Point in Crystal River 11 years ago to help clean up that portion of Kings Bay. That was the south end of Kings Bay, and I needed a place to pull that Lingbia algae out for my one rake at a time project. Well,
You're amazing, by the way. I just want to say that.
So we cleaned up all around there, and I brought out FWC and some other people look at it, and they're like, stop all the erosion. You know, what do I do here? Stop all the erosion, get rid of the invasives, and save as many cedar trees as possible. It's a beautiful piece of property. It's a little over 4 acres. It's got an inland lagoon. So I've finished the seawalls. I've cleaned it up. It's stabilized. The bay is looking so good. It's so nice to see eelgrass floating on the surface instead of Lingbia algae. And now it's time to pass it on. And I'm thinking, what is the best use for this property? And I'm thinking, wow, wouldn't it be perfect for a manatee rehabilitation center, or maybe an environmental park, maybe an annex for the Marine Science Station? I mean, it has so much potential to be such an asset to the community. So I wanted to bring that here and share my dreams with you, because sometimes people don't see what I see. And I see a lot of possibilities here. I see sort of imitating what we did with Three Sisters Springs, where when I first moved up to Crystal River, it was Save Three Sisters. And we just got a group of people together and we just kept getting it, and everybody helped. The county helped, the city helped, the TDC helped, different foundations helped. We got Swift Mud to help. There's a lot of little pieces to put together. So I wanted to put this out in the public and say, hey, this is another little gem for Crystal River. So what do we do with it? Crystal River just had their 100-year anniversary. So where do we go the next 100 years? So I talked to the manatee people. I even brought Pat Rose out there. If you're familiar with Pat Rose, he's a tough cookie. And he loved it. And I brought Buddy Powell out there. I brought Joyce Palmer out there, the manatee refuge people. And they're like, yes, there is a need for more rehabilitation centers for manatees. But they don't have the funding. So they're like, yes, there is, but somehow we've got to get the funding from somewhere else. So I'm reached out to some of my neighbors there. I'm reaching out to everybody in the community and say, let's take a look at it, some ideas, and I would love to see it just saved forever. It could be a nature sanctuary, it could be an environmental park, it could be an agriculture center, it could be a research center, it could be a manatee rehab center, or a combination of all those, or somebody could just build a big house on it. And not that that's bad, but we want something else other than just another big house. So I wanted to put that out there and share that with you, and get back to me with any ideas that you have.
Thank you, Mr.
Greatly
Jones.
appreciate it.
Anyone else for open to the public?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. John Labriola, Inverness. I also noticed the item on the agenda for the TDC, and I'm also the publisher of the Citrus Crusader, and since the TDC passed that controversial item, the ill-fated item on the DEI proposal that they had, I've done several articles, so I've attended a number of the meetings, so I was very interested when I saw this item on the agenda, and I also noticed that it didn't have a deadline. So I would like to, put it out there, let people know that, because now a lot of our readers are, interested in following what the TDC is doing since that whole fiasco happened. And I would like to, put it out there that this vacancy is available. So it would help if I knew what the deadline was. So if either staff or the commission could address what the deadline is, and then I could put it out there as a PSA, no extra charge, and maybe we can give the gentleman who spoke earlier a little competition. But I also agreed with the earlier comments about I don't agree with construction of a. I read the article in the Chronicle about construction of a homeless center. I also would not agree with that for the reasons stated earlier. So thank you.
Anyone else for open to the public? All right. With the board's forbearance, I would like to address the homeless shelter and then pass it off to, or the homeless center, not shelter, and then pass it off to y'all for comments. So that was my personal opinion. I was not speaking for the board. I was not speaking for the chamber. This is something that I have done a very deep dive for about 2.5 years through my involvement with Prosperity Citrus. And this is a work in progress. And Mr. O'Connell, I share exactly your concerns that you sent in the email, which is why I have made sure that it won't do that. This is my home. I've lived here since, off and on, but I grew up here. I moved here when I was 11 years old. I don't want to see what you're talking about in the cities be here. Of course not. So I would just encourage all of us to remember that 10,000 people a day in the United States hit retirement age. Automation is not going to save us. So from a humanity and Christianity standpoint, absolutely, we should give a hand up in coaching to help bring people that were born into generational poverty into the working, having the dignity of work. But it's also from a fiscal conservative standpoint that turns tax takers into taxpayers. So all of this has to be very, very well thought out, and maybe it won't get any traction. But that was just me saying something that I've been working on for 2.5 years now. It's something I feel very passionately about, and I'd like to see something like that happen. But it's a team effort. I do not nearly have all the answers, not even remotely. It needs to be a team effort with the community for us to make this an even better community in the future. So I do thank you for your input, Mr. O'Connell. It was well thought out, and I do agree with it. But, I invite you to stay tuned and, remark. But let's bring an attitude of positivity towards it to try to make this community a better place. That's what I would ask for. I will wait to address the other items and let my colleagues go. Who wants to go first?
I'll chime in. The permitting issues, that's a repeated thing that we hear about. It's my understanding that Eric and his staff continue to work hard on getting that corrected, so I have the utmost confidence that we will get there. I know it's not fast enough for the folks caught up in that mess, but, was it the best rollout? Probably not, but they're working tirelessly to get it fixed. So that's all that I will say about that. The vacancies on the TDC, that is coming up. It's coming up later on our agenda, I believe, announcing the vacancies. And Josh, I wish you guys hadn't fixed that software thing. I'll get my invoice paid for 2019 shortly.
Well played, Kennard. Who wants to go next?
Well, I guess it's no secret that 2/3 of the front page on Saturday was about the permitting process and that I'm frustrated. But I would say that I know that our staff has been working diligently on it, but now is not the time to let our foot off the gas. It's only going to get worse. We've been discovered. We know that there's going to be other builders coming in here. So Eric, if you wouldn't mind getting with Mr. Bailey to find out what the issues are, and please, if you have an issue, let me know personally. I'll help walk you through that process. I've been very active in this all along, but I do sympathize with our personnel in the building department because they've been a little bit of a punching bag. So I'm sympathetic to them, but we will get through this and we will get the issue resolved. As far as a homeless center, I will just say this. I think the proper course of action on something like that is to go to the root cause. And many times the root cause is mental illness or substance abuse. And the last board meeting, we approved $2 million for a behavioral health center. I would like to think that that is the source of how we should be addressing this, and finding those fixes through that. I know that's a ways off, but we're continuing to work on the behavioral health here in the county. We have another meeting coming up on July 17th at 9 a.m. in the jury assembly room. The Department of Children and Family Services and Lutheran will be our guest speakers that day. We're going to continue to work on this. The Baker Act was not a one and done. We are going to persevere on this issue and see it through to the end. So stay tuned on that. I guess that's all I have.
Thank you. Commissioner Finnegan?
Yeah, I think we're all caring about the permit process, and some of us have felt the burn also, but I would say our staff is working very diligently on it. It's probably not fast enough, and I'm sure if you ask Mr. Landon, he would love to snap his fingers and have it all fixed, as would many of us with businesses if there's an issue. It takes time, and none of us want it to take time, including Mr. Landon doesn't want it to take time. But I do know the people that I have worked with that just couldn't get over that hump and then got that one-on-one attention, had some specific issues and they got fixed. So we are going to get you help, Dennis, and hopefully get some of those permits issued right away. And I have every faith in Mr. Landon, and he will help you get there. Permitting. Oh, Mr. Jones, I want to say I just got this, so I didn't really have the opportunity, but I will be looking at this. So thank you for giving me the information. And the homeless, I think our fellow commissioner has a heart in a good place. I would ask her not call it a processing center.
It's a horrible phrase, you're right.
Yeah, we could help with some wording with that. I do have some experience with that, and I agree with Commissioner Bays. We have to get to the root problems. Mental health is one of those issues, and we're obviously taking great strides for that. Substance abuse, as she said, is another. And I would be remiss in saying domestic violence, because that was obviously my background for my entire career. And we, as a community, can work on these issues. I will say, being in that realm, nonprofits do a very good job of helping other people. And personally, I do not believe that's government's place. I am a member of government now, and I do sit on a board. I actually sit on the board of the Sanctuary Mission in Homosassa, who, if you don't know about that, they do a phenomenal job with not only homelessness, but rehabilitation, whether with addictions, whether it's drugs, alcohol, or some other addiction. It's a fabulous program. It's a working program also. People are rehabilitated. It's faith-based. They come out with money so they can afford a place to live or a car, or whatever the needs may be. So I encourage anyone that wants to help with the issue of homelessness to get actively involved in a place that is helping, a nonprofit, where you find your niche. I think that we all can make that difference. I understand your concerns, and I don't think that that government can handle that well. The only time government sometimes is okay, and I know in some communities that have had a huge homeless issue and it's gotten out of hand, is maybe be a funding mechanism, not running programs. I don't think that needs to be a role personally. I don't know what other board members think now or possibly in the future. I think that every community has homeless. I would like us to have less, and I think our nonprofits and our churches, we have churches that are doing private missions too, are doing a phenomenal job, and I don't know that we have an issue greater, than any other communities dealing with, but we do need to be aware and and get to those root issues and help those in need. And I think that's enough said.
Great. I actually did forget to address Mr. O'Connell's point. I'm glad both of my female colleagues did so. The root causes are absolutely important, but it is more than mental health and it is more than substance abuse. The Florida Prosperity Project has identified 10 root causes of poverty, and those are food, health, shelter, justice, safety, voice, education, employment, transportation, and if you have children, childcare. Those are the 10 root causes. And while we're on the topic, I want to give a shout out to the Chamber and to United Way for teaming together to keep those families that are one tiny disaster away from losing their job or their home. For example, car won't start, needs $450 worth of work. So both of those entities are stepping up to help people not become homeless, which is super important. In terms of whether this is a government building, I do not think it needs to be government run. I agree with you on that. I am a small government conservative. I just wanted, I'm really thankful for this discussion because this is an overdue discussion that we need to have publicly. And I'm open to anything. I want the community to pull together to decide, what is the right course. I agree that government tends to screw things up, stuff like that. So the reason I said that it would be good to be put in that corridor on 491 is because you have education there. You've got Lecanto Educational Complex, you have CF, you have Lifestream Behavioral Health, you have county transit, you have other county services there, you have the health department, you have all of those things. And one of the most important parts of generational poverty is to give people a path out of living in poverty in a neighborhood of poverty-stricken individuals. So it's just very difficult. But enough about that. Permitting, I would just please say that yell at us, don't yell at our staff because they are trying their darndest to get this fixed. I did hear, none of the rest of you mentioned this, so maybe I'm working on false information, but I believe our county administrator, who's not here today, said that we would be getting this fixed, or all the permits that are way overdue would be done by this week. So if you've got such a permit, Mr. Bailey, please, I fixed one yesterday. So staff pulled it. So just talk to us, yell at us if you need to. When you didn't, you were very polite, but just don't yell at the staff because they're really running at red line. I took them cattle dog cookies on Friday and said, stick to it, man. Figure maybe the sugar fuel would help. And Mr. Jones, my only concern on that is that would probably need to be something that is low impact on cars because that is a heavily dense residential neighborhood. So
Visit only by boat.
okay, fair enough. All right, so we're going to close. We're done with comments, so we're going to move to item E what? 12?
E12.
Thank you. Thank you for your patience, clerk.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Commissioners. I am coming before you today for approval to pay 3 Madden Media invoices totaling $50,000. The agenda memorandum provides the reason and purpose for this request, but I can answer any questions that you may have.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
motion to deny.
Second.
Well, that's all it takes.
Okay. Any public comment? Any board discussion? You drew the first breath. Would you like to speak?
Not really, but yeah, I mean, I see that, and I see it two ways. One, if the county got the service, albeit we shouldn't have, we voted against it. We like to pay our bills, but on the other thought, when I really started thinking about this, I don't know that that company wasn't complicit in knowing that this wasn't a done deal because they didn't mark a title like they do on every other media campaign. It was blank, and they wouldn't normally divide it into 3 parts. So I'm assuming that's some of the reasoning.
Madam Clerk, would you like to address any problems with us not paying our bills?
Sure. Well, actually, I don't think I could address that. I believe that your legal counsel would be the one to address that. This bill, it was a line item that was actually part of a larger invoice, and the remainder, just for your information, the remainder of the invoice has been paid because we operate under the Florida statutes that requires a prompt pay of 45 days. So we did pay the rest of the invoice. You're current on that part of it. This amount of the first amount was $16,000. There was another amount that's $16,666.67, and then we just received the invoice for the last one. All of those invoices are net 30. I failed to jump in on the public portion. I appreciate your position on not wanting to pay that bill. What I would say is we want to also receive confirmation that the services were actually received. My email to you, I believe, explained that we do need to make sure and confirm that the services that we have been invoiced for actually took place and were received. This invoice, this participation in this event, and this fee was denied by this board on a 3-2 vote on March the 28th. So that's why I'm coming back to you to get it paid, because I can't pay it lawfully. I cannot pay this without the board's approval. Your decision, of course, is your decision. It's the will of the board. But if you don't pay it, then of course that would be your attorney's. That would be up to your attorney as to how to handle that with Madden Media.
Madam Attorney, do you have any comments?
No.
Madam Chair, I
Commissioner
find it
Kennard?
outrageous that any county employee would order a service or supply or anything like that specifically after this board has said we do not want it, we're not going to pay for it, and they proceeded with it. So whether or not the vendor was complicit in this or not, it certainly appears that way, that the $50,000 bill was divided up into 3 different payments and then listed as a line item without a proper description on it, hoping that it would go through the clerk's office and get paid. There's no way I'm going to support paying this.
Hang on, I absolutely share your outrage, 100%. I do have some other thoughts, but I'll let Commissioner Finnegan go.
Question for Madam Clerk.
Yes, ma'am.
The contract that was signed over this item that we denied, what date was it signed? Do you have that?
The information that we received from Madden, I believe that the original information was signed in February. The document that we received, that's the only backup that we have that shows that's strictly related to this particular zoo activation, was signed by Madden, a representative from Madden, in February.
When did we sign it? And I'm guessing when I say we, not us, the employee that decided to.
We have not been provided that information. The request to the board was made on March the 28th. The event was the next weekend.
We don't have a copy of that. Only Madden Media can supply us when a county person signed that.
I don't know. I'm sorry, you're asking me questions that I don't have answers for, because I don't know if Citrus County, the director would have had to have signed additional documentation. We have asked for that backup. The only thing that we were provided to date was the document that is from February that was specifically related to this. The backup that was brought to the board, presented to the board in March, was all of the information related to the campaign when the additional $50,000 was requested. When we asked for the backup for that line item, we were provided the identical information for that, and also the director confirmed that it was for the zoo activation for the Cincinnati Zoo campaign that took place.
I might be able to shed some light on this as an ad agency owner. So typically when we work with a client, they have to sign off on the media plan. I need a signature from the client that says, yes, you can place this much advertising. In turn, when we then issue an insertion order for broadcast, print, media, what have you, it carries a line that says, if the client doesn't pay us, we are not liable for this cost. We will not pay you if the client doesn't pay us. So I agree, it looks a little difficult. I think Madden was probably put in a very difficult position. And the problem is that the Cincinnati Zoo, which, assuming that they did provide the service, which obviously has to, trust but verify, zoos typically operate a lot as fundraising nonprofit sorts of vehicles, and we may very well be hurting someone that had zero fault in this. So I agree with Commissioner Finnegan that we need to look at the dates on all of this, but I would be real hesitant to not pay our bills if it's going to hurt the zoo. And the other issue is likely going to be taken care of in terms of who caused this.
Madam Chair, the only thing I wouldn't agree with is Madden Media. I don't know that they were put in a difficult position. They seem complicit when you look at that line item and there's nothing there, and they willfully just divided it out. There was a reason.
I agree. It looks. I did say it looks problematic. I have been asked to do things by clients that are not, were a little bit shady, and I said no. However, government rules are fairly opaque to a lot of private businesses, so I'm just not going to throw them under the bus, but I agree with your concern.
I do believe that there still needs to be confirmation that the services actually took place. I know that has been the position.
And that they've been paid.
Of DMB and and Marcel and the administrator, and certainly you should. I mean, you should make sure you've got that. But the activation plan was actually 8 weeks, and that concluded probably in he came to you April and May. Yeah, it was over May. So and again, this is not I am not in media and marketing, but from what we can read, that seems to be the case. But nevertheless, I have a bill to pay, and I cannot pay it by law without the approval of this board because you denied it in March. So that's why I'm before you today.
Thank you for catching it and bringing it to our attention.
Yes, ma'am.
So, sounds like we're going to end up voting against this. However, can you get us more information? Keep us apprised. Like any of the signature dates, will you be chasing those down or no?
It is not my intention to. I have what I need and to actually pay the invoice. There may be some on the final invoice. I believe there is the expectation of some additional information that performance. I would say proof of performance that is being requested. And nevertheless, I have 2 invoices that are April, May, that have exceeded the net 30, and the second one's coming up on the prompt pay. So, of the 45. So, I would suggest that the board has to make a decision on this so that I, know which direction to go. And if it is to continue to hold this until such time as you have that information, or not at all, it is the will of the board.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Let's vote.
Any other discussion? Yes.
Well, it sounds to me like the board is not in favor of paying an unauthorized expenditure.
Yes, I gathered that. I'm torn because I don't want the zoo hurt. I'd like to have more information on this before I decide, but it's already going down with the ship, so.
I am happy to, Madam Chair, I'm happy to reach out to, we can reach out directly to Madden, or if you want me to do this, I will be happy to reach out to Madden and attempt to acquire more clarifying information, specifically because the invoice goes through Madden to the zoo. So the zoo may have already been paid for all we know. And
That's my
Madden,
question, because.
so I can find that out for you if that is your wish and direction.
All right, so we'll take the vote now, and if we have new information, we may revisit it in the future. We'll see. How's that?
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. All good? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Now I know why Ruthie's always like, where are we?
Madam Chair,
Yes, regular
motion to
business.
approve item E1A through G.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any public comment? Any board discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right. E2. You're
Motion
up,
to
Maricel.
approve item E2.
Do we need to read it into the record or no? Okay. All right.
No, ma'am.
We got a motion, second, anyone?
Second.
All right, we
Sorry.
got a motion and a second. Any public comment? Any board discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. E3.
Motion to approve E3.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any public comment? Any board discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Motion to approve E4.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any public comment? Any board discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Motion to approve E5A and B.
Look at you all on top of it.
Second.
Move us
Second.
along.
All right. Got a motion by Commissioner Finnegan, and I heard Commissioner Kennard a little louder. Any public comment? Any board discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Just giving somebody else a chance, but motion to approve E6.
Oh, you're on a roll.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any public comment? Any board discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
There's additional info on E7? That I wrote that as a note. Were we supposed to
Yeah,
do
that
something
was
with that?
Motion to approve E7.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any public comment? Any board discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Motion to approve E8.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any public comment? Any board discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, E9, I want to have a discussion on this. Looking for a motion in a second, but I want to address the emails that we got. I have a way to meld the two. If anybody wants to do a motion in a second for the sake of discussion. I think it's a great idea what we got by email, but I want to address it from my point of being a marketing expert.
My motion is to deny.
Second. Guess we
So-
can still have discussion.
Yeah. So reason being is, and I didn't know about the measuring device for scallops. So the public knows we got a whole slew of emails suggesting that we do move these scalloping funds into more of a public service type campaign to market that there is to be ecologically responsible for our scallop population, and to get these measuring devices and do a campaign around that. And so I remember approving this on the TDC, and one of the coolest things about this is that they're using the same models from like 5 years ago, and now they're grown up, or more grown, they're still children. And so how cool would that to have that footage but now ask the vendor to put in, the film company to put in the measuring devices and create a storyline around that to say that, the storyline being that we all growing up and letting the scallops grow up, and there's a lot of interesting creative tie-ins with that storyline. So I think it would be fun and very beneficial to our scallop population. There's absolutely no doubt that the TDC board shares the concern of this board about our scallop populations and the need to keep them healthy. So that's my piece. We can vote it down. It's fine.
Madam Chair?
I'm not going to fall on that sword. I'm just letting you know that I thought it was a good idea. And there's a way to weave those storylines together that would really be beneficial for this. So if you were to make a motion to approve this, I would say with that caveat, or perhaps it could come back. The problem is, of course, it is a little bit time sensitive because it's scallop season now, so it needs to be shot, now. So,
Madam Chair?
yes, sir.
I'm going to support the motion to deny, but I will tell you that since I believe it was the summer of 2017, I spent a little bit of time down in Pasco County that summer and was surprised at the number of very mature scallops that were in waist-deep water, and had a conversation with my then friend Mike Wells, who was a county commissioner down there. And he had told me at that time that he was going to be pushing to get a season opened up there. I had a discussion with some folks on the TDC board at that time and the director, and felt like we needed to really be pushing a reseeding program, that we needed to be focused on that I felt very strongly that with Commissioner Wells' contacts in Tallahassee and the force that he was building to get a season opened up, that we had better get moving to be able to provide something more than just we have lodging on the water and they don't. That we needed to get on our game with reseeding and having a population that would support the people who are already coming here. And I don't want to say it's fallen on deaf ears, because I know the TDC has had a presentation from a biologist from UF that essentially says, let it ride its course until the population collapses, or we fully understand this and the population is going to magically come back. But I do wish we would get with the program as a county. That isn't directed at TDC, but as a county, and come together with a plan to do a reseeding program. We've got some great folks up at Duke who I think could help us, and we need the state to get on board. They're seemingly on board with reseeding in other parts of the state, so I don't know what their concerns are here that they would not share up there as well. So Anyway, just my thoughts.
I'm trying to remember, so I've been for reseeding all along, and I remember that presentation. I'm struggling to remember if that was when Commissioner Kitchen was still on TDC, and I just saw it from the cheap seats, or if I was on the board. But in any regard, you know, as much as I respect the biologist's opinion, I don't see why, if we're stocking fisheries, that we can't restock scallops. I
Yeah.
really don't understand that. And so while we're discussing this, I would like to know, I know that in our last TDC meeting, I was just reviewing the minutes for tomorrow's meeting, and it said quite in there, the board asked the director of the TDC to follow up to find out if this board wanted a workshop or just a presentation in our regular meeting. So I'm asking you, so we can make this happen, do you want a scallop workshop, or do you want it as just a presentation during a regular meeting?
I mean, I want it. I don't
But
care
which
when
one?
it's done.
Okay, you don't,
Depends on how long it is, I guess. You know, if it's a 30-minute presentation, we could probably put it at a board meeting. If it's gonna be an hour plus,
I have a feeling it's probably better as a workshop, so we don't have the time-sensitive crunch, but We'll
That
just see
sounds
what the
good. I
schedule
want the
is.
ability to ask questions, to ask those questions.
okay, so let's do a workshop then, and we'll get this handled, because I am completely in agreement with you on that, so.
I have something. Can I have the floor?
Yes.
Oh, thank you. And I skipped a beat because Commissioner Kennard and I both have scalloping districts, and I was hoping he would go first. I am not the expert on scallops, although I enjoy finding them. I do not eat seafood, so I give them away. But what I do know is, you know, from everyone that's been doing it for many, many years, about reseeding. That's what I get asked all the time. When is the county going to start allowing reseeding? Because it just gets worse and worse every year. Something I think I know why, probably for tourism, but it seems like we have the longest scallop season. And if we are putting TDC money, when I saw this, I don't think that we have a problem getting people here at all to scallop at all. What I do think we have a problem with is, I love the idea in the emails we were sent by the captains, the measuring device, safety. You all read in the paper about the FWC looking for a boater that hit a swimmer in the water. That must have been 2 or 3 days later, we took people out on our boat. And I was on the opposite side. My friend stayed on the boat. I'm in the water here. People were everywhere, but her dad was on the other side, so I didn't see it happen. But she started yelling at me and saying that even after days after this, she was screaming at a boat speeding through the scallop grounds. Her dad heard commotion, popped up, waving his hands, narrowly was missed. She saw a second boat going by. Thankfully, it was FWC on it and got that boat. So we have to, I mean, with so many diver down flags, I'm not even sure what these people are thinking. But
They're not.
they're not. And I would like to see reseeding, and I'd like to learn more about that because I'm not the expert. Scallop measuring, I'd like to see that, and safety, scallop boating safety. And we have so many people renting boats between Homosassa and Crystal River. And I venture to say that maybe this may be first time with a boat. So education's going to be key just to keep people safe.
Well said.
Thank you.
Anything further?
I'll make a couple comments. At the FAC conference, I actually spoke with IFAS regarding the scallop, and they actually sent me an update on the scallop position paper. So I'll be happy to share that. They actually passed out the little measuring devices up there. I gave mine out to one of the boat captains over the weekend. Again, I feel like we just, 99% of these boats and the trucks and trailers are parking illegally. We just don't even have enough capacity for parking at the boat ramps for all the traffic that we're getting. And I just kind of feel like right now, if there's money that's going to be spent, we need to be diversifying again. God forbid we get hit by red tide or some other something that would happen, you know, in our waterways that we should really be looking beyond how we advertise on the west side of our county and doing other things besides water activities. So that's really my 2 cents on that and my reasoning for denying them.
That's fine. Like I said, I really appreciated all the emails that we got. It was great ideas, and I'm sure that'll be part of the discussion tomorrow at TDC. So, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Motion to approve E10.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any public comment? Any board discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Motion to approve E11.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any public comment? Any board discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Outstanding commission items, I think, is where we are. There's no other additions to E. Nope. Okay, Mayor Sal.
We do have 3 updates, Chair. On item number 3, the Halls River Rural Multi-Purpose Path. As you heard from Gene, the legislation approved $2.3 million in funding, and DOT is including this project in their work plan. On item number 8, establish criteria for the no wake and quiet zones, and UAR will be presented to you on July 25th meeting. And then on item number 10, the Betts Farm, the board approved staff to put the Betts Farm back on the market. Those are the 3 items on their outstanding items.
Thank you. And do we need a motion on that? Or just for information? Got it.
Information.
Do you
Madam
have?
Chair?
Yes.
I'm just gonna chime in on the Halls River Road, multi-purpose path. I've been exchanging emails this morning regarding that. I would like to see us handle more of this in-house rather than punting the entire project to DOT. It appears, just based on the estimates that we've got, that we don't have nearly enough money to complete the entire project. But I believe there's got to be a significant portion of this project that is much easier to handle, that we could handle in-house, possibly all the way through construction on county right-of-way. I don't want us to overcomplicate this. It's a sidewalk. It's a wide sidewalk. DOT's in the business. They're capable of building sidewalks and multi-purpose paths, but DOT wants to build $3 billion flyovers in Tampa and Dade County and expressways through 3 or 4 counties. This is a sidewalk on a county roadway where we already own the right of way. What about breaking it down into phases and say, these are the easy segments of this that we can do in-house. We can spend this money, we can get it out of here, the legislature already gave us. We can put whatever matching funds we need to with it and get it under construction. Get some pieces done. Then, as we heard Gene and Sean say earlier, come back to the legislature and say, you gave us this money last year. This is what we've done with it. We need this much funding to take it further, to do additional environmental assessments to get through these tricky parts. Right now, we are keeping 0 people off the road. If we can get half of this project done, we're going to keep them off the road 50% of the time, okay? Just because we can't keep them off all the way to 19 doesn't mean we shouldn't get it started. Right now, we go back to the legislature for additional funding on the Salopopka project. The first question is going to be, what'd you do with the $7 million we gave you? It's still on the shelf. What did you do with the $13 million we gave you for 491? It's still on the shelf. You know, we have got to get these projects moving. If it means breaking them down into segments, let's do that and not punt the whole thing to DOT.
And this is why I, for one, appreciate the senior member of the board.
Hear, hear. I do want to add that, I have been every briefing constantly talking about the Halls River project in my district. I get asked questions all the time. And if you sent something today, Mary, I haven't had a chance to check email. 11 o'clock last night was the cutoff. But I do want to know if that's possible. And I had asked that in the beginning, and I got everything is out. Everything gets out. It's an FDOT project. But that's why I appreciate the longevity and wisdom to say.
There we go, that's better, that's better.
Yes, wisdom. The
You could
wise,
throw brilliance in there.
the brilliant commissioner.
Every
the end
woman knows
left.
how to fluff a male ego. I'm just saying.
Yes, we have to, because I, for one, want to be one of those first people saying, look at how far we got. Look at the $1 million that we said we would match with this, and we did great things with this amount of money. Please help us with the rest. And we are taking X amount of people off the road at this time, and it's safer at this time, and that needs to happen by year end. So when we go back up in January, we can make a good ask for that money.
Great.
So if each one of you want to also address the Halls River Road multi-use path, that
Hey,
would be
it's all for
fantastic.
one and one for all.
I think what we need is another engineer.
Yeah,
What's that?
We need an engineer
Yeah.
on staff,
more staff.
more staff.
Speaking of, Ms. Rodriguez, would you like to address what appears to be the consensus of the board, that we would like to handle this in-house instead of waiting on FDOT? I'm putting you on the spot, sorry.
Yeah, it is kind of putting me on the spot without seeing the entire scope of the project and know what's in front of us. So, I mean.
But you can get back to us.
We can definitely get back to you, yeah.
It does make sense, and, quite literally, lives could be saved. There's certain roads that should not have bicycles and walkers on. It's just too dangerous. So, all right. Speaking of, County Administrator Steve Howard, do you have anything?
We do not, and he doesn't either.
Okay, moving on to I-1.
That is for the Tourism Development Council, and that is A, to accept the resignation of Gene McGee from the Tourism Development Council effective April 4, 2023. And B, announce 2 membership vacancies and announce the accepting of applications for 2 members, 1 citizen who demonstrates an interest in tourism development, and 1 owner-operator of a tourist accommodation. Both current membership terms expire on January 31, 2025. And I'd like to add that tomorrow there will be a press release that will go out that will have the deadline of the applications.
That was going to be my next question.
Typically, it is 2 to 3 weeks, so I imagine it's probably the first week of August, the deadline.
Thank you. All right, looking for a motion for I-1.
Motion to approve I-1A and B.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any public comment?
I have a word comment.
I was about to ask for it, but we've got somebody in motion.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm out of order. I'm so sorry.
It's all right. I'm never out of order.
John Labriel, Inverness again. Thanks for the answers to the question about the that there's going to be a deadline. I would like to know what the deadline is, but also with that ad, I know that in the past, going through some of these boards, it's been kept open for an extremely long time. So one thing is to ask for a deadline for the applications to be in by, but then it would be good to have also the date of the meeting when it'll come back before the board, because I don't know if there's an effort sometimes with these boards if not to want to upset the existing majority and just keep it open for a very long time before the board comes back to the board for a decision. So would that ad also have the date of the meeting when the application, when the nominations will take place? And do you have those dates now? Can you give them to us now? Because as I said before, I'm publisher of the Citrus Crusader. We've done several articles on the TDC after the item. Everyone's familiar with the DEI item that kind of flopped because, you know, the controversy around the whole DEI concept, diversity, equity, inclusion. So I've done several articles about the TDC. I've attended several meetings, so I think there's a greater interest now in this board, and I would like the opportunity to put that out there to my readers, so you know, to help you all find hopefully some applicants. So if you could, if you know the deadline and date of the meeting when they will be considered, if you could let me know those now, so I can go ahead and let the people, our readers know. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Madam Chair, I'm sorry, I didn't catch you quick enough, but this is informational only. It's not actually a vote.
Oh,
I'm
thank
sorry.
you.
I apologize. I was trying to, but
I just was moving too fast. I like to run a tight meeting.
I mean, can we answer the question? Do we have the dates already? I'm sure it's not a
Typically,
secret
we
if we have
don't.
the dates.
We don't have the dates. It will go out in the press release tomorrow for the application deadline, but the
It'll
board
have a
meeting.
start date and an end date, and then
Well, the start date would be immediate, and then the end date would be the deadline. But typically, we don't know when it's going to come before the commission because there's a lot of moving parts in terms of how thick our agenda is for that day and staff deadlines to make the agenda and so on and so forth. Their deadlines are way ahead of our deadlines, the commission deadlines. So
perhaps we can send Mr. Labriel an email and let him know.
That would be lovely.
that would be great. And just so the community knows, all of our advisory boards, I don't care how busy our book is, if staff gets it in and we're supposed to vote on people, I think that we should vote on people as soon as you approve, Madam Attorney, and it all gets into our agenda.
Noted.
I'm sorry I cut in, but we'll make sure he gets an email.
Thank you.
So, item N1, I am actually reading my agenda this time where it says no vote. It was in giant letters and I somehow missed it. I need better readers. Anyway, N1, as far as I understand, the only one that is legal to serve as alternate is Commissioner Finnegan, correct?
Yes.
So that's just a done deal.
Oh, you mean, am I?
Oh, thank
So
you
he's
all
off,
for.
now I'm on, and then you're the alternate?
Oh,
Is
I
that the
thought you
deal?
knew you were on.
I think you were already on, ma'am.
You're on.
I thought he was on, and I was his alternate, and now he's off.
And you moved up. Commissioner Bays, I think this is where we say,
Would you like
thank you for nominating us. We humbly
I
accept.
want to change spots.
I don't even know, I think we have to
Chair.
take a class and be there on election, I mean, whatever. I'm
Who
happy
wants
to
be
serve.
primary? I don't care. You two are the only two, so we can have a celebrity death match, arm wrestling, something, but who wants to be it?
Commissioner Bays has it. If she wants me to be the lead, I'll happily take that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You owe me one.
All right, we're appointing Diana Finnegan to the canvassing board and Rebecca Bays as alternate. Excellent.
And then just to freak her out, the board meeting before that.
Can we count victory?
Okay.
That's what I like about you, taking one for the team there.
Yep.
Chair, is that a motion or?
It says no vote.
Okay, and just a question, the other one that you did, a motion and second, did we need to withdraw that or?
Oh, who was the first on
I
that?
think that was me. I'll withdraw my motion.
I'll
Thank
withdraw
you.
my second.
And also, we did skip committee reports, correct?
I don't think, are we there yet?
Yes, you went to N1, right?
Oh, okay.
I don't have anything.
I only made a few boo-boos
That's
today. It's not
okay.
too bad for a
You're
maiden
doing
voyage.
good.
We'll go back to that in just a moment. Thank you.
Hello, Madam
Hi.
Chair. Inverness Village IV.
Yes.
Went to special master a week ago. We had about half a dozen cases that were found guilty for clearing without a permit. Another half a dozen that were continued at the request of an attorney. So those will come back in this month's meeting. Waiting to see if those will actually be heard or not. The moratorium expires on the 25th. So that, and then we
Well,
continue.
that's going to be,
we-
that's the next item on
And we
this.
continue to go out on a minimum on a weekly basis and canvass for trash, silt fences, and issue those fines when they're found in violation. So we're still working it out there.
Excellent. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, I will back up to committee reports next, but N3, I would like to make a motion for us to extend the temporary stop on issuing permits for Inverness Villages for an additional 3 months. And Madam Attorney, does that add to the original 3 months, or are we restarting the clock? So it's 3 months from today if we voted in, or is it 3 months plus whatever's left on the expiration of the original?
I would say that would depend on your motion. If your motion is to start another 3-month time period at the end of the existing 3-month time period, then it would be consecutive, or you can,
That's my motion, the first one. We're gonna add 3 months to the end of this one to run consecutively
so
without
beginning on July 26th, it would be 3 months.
Yes. That's my motion.
I'll second.
Any public comment? Any board discussion?
Yeah. So we first extended it because in my thoughts, we were going to have somebody come back and say, okay, this is, if the people want paved roads, this is an approximate from here to here, what the MSBU is gonna look like. We haven't made any progress to that. It seems that our contracted attorney didn't receive whatever flub of theirs or got started on this. So I don't, and I did get some feedback from constituents of why is the county paying money to go to this project where we all don't live there? That's special to them. Why isn't this community paying for it? We could possibly not do that now because it never got started. And I would actually be for that. We have an attorney that advises us on, and maybe she will want to make a few statements after I'm done with what the county should or shouldn't do. Some people want the MSBU. I don't know how many people. I know a few people have shown up. I know there's like 400 homes in there. I know at one point the price was high per household, but for what they paid and then for what someone paid right outside of on a paved road, that's about the difference. You know, if they probably got a better deal, about $80,000 to $100,000 because they're not on a paved road. I could possibly be okay extending this, but my question to this board would be, to what end? At first, I thought we were putting a moratorium on it because we would have the information to maybe share with this community and say, do you want to live on dirt roads or do you want an MSBU? Now we're at the end of that 3, we're not going to know that. If we do it another 3, I don't think we're going to know that information either. It almost would have to be an extend to maybe 6 months or not extended. So I'm not saying for or against yet until we call the vote. I did want to have a discussion though, just so we kind of get it all out there. What is the plan beyond this?
I can speak to that.
Oh, good.
So the point is to stop the madness.
Yes.
So the point, and it's not actually a moratorium, it's a temporary stop on issuing permits. From a legal perspective, it's not a moratorium. So the issue is that the former board did not have the gumption, shall we say, I really wish I could come up with a better word, to the moxie to stop this before, or they didn't see it as a county problem. And this board was willing to stop it. The problem is that in intervening time, this came to my attention well over 2 years ago at this point, In the intervening time, they have rapidly started, yet not finished, a whole bunch of houses all the way down the hill. They are building on the low lots. And that is what's driving the cost up to our swamp math. Our very rough estimate was 80 to 100,000 a lot. I agree with you that that is the cost difference of buying in that neighborhood versus buying in an established neighborhood such as where I live or whatnot. Unfortunately, people have bought into that under the understanding that they were going to get roads and drainage for about $6,000. That's one of the, there's been multiple costs that have been floated around on what they were told or led to believe. So the problem is that even at a 20-year MSBU, which we as a county had discussed doing for them, it's going to bankrupt a whole lot of people. So we can't do that. I absolutely have my eye on using general fund money for a limited neighborhood. It doesn't make me happy. And I'm fine with, if it's the board's pleasure to cancel the outside counsel, I'm fine with that. However, we did approve $35,000 for an external consultant to get a fine number on fixing that neighborhood. If it goes forward to an MSBU, then we can recover that $35,000 as part of the MSBU. If it does not go forward into an MSBU, then yes, we have spent $35,000 of general fund money on a single neighborhood, which is really sticks in my craw. But I judged it to be a better use of taxpayer money. The reason I voted for it is that that neighborhood is probably going to end up costing us a lot more money in the long term than $35,000. And if we can get it fixed, we should get it fixed. It's also spent how many staff hours on that? So we're already spending general fund money on staff time. And to replace that with a hard number that is done by someone that was able to fix the upper portion of Inverness Village IV, I don't know, I guess it was a decade ago. If he can come back with a tighter number, then we have an actual number that maybe the citizens can afford. And so the whole point of stopping permits was to allow that engineer to finish that work. And do we have an estimate on when that's going to be done?
So we have the special assessment study. We should have something by next week from what I understand. And then after that, in that study, we're going to get a tentative schedule for conceptual data on the earthwork and stormwater.
Excellent.
And that should probably take until the end of the year, that portion, if I'm correct.
We just had this conversation this morning because I wanted to clarify that with Mary to see if we would get enough information in a week for determining or possibly determining an MSBU. And the answer was no. That would probably take to the end of the year. That's why I said in 3 months. Do we need to make it 6 months or 3 months and then we're going to do another 3 months?
Well, we could either do 6 months and then, at any point in time, any board member can bring it forward on their agenda to lift the temporary stop if we decide that we want to do that.
The other, I'm sorry.
But so I'm fine with 6 months. I'm fine with 3 months, whichever. I'm happy to amend my motion, but whenever you're done, I'll let them talk.
I mean, it's a mess, but I am just curious for the people that bought, and this happens all over the county, they bought a piece of land on a dirt road to build on a dirt road, and they're fine with the dirt road. They can't build. They can't do that right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what the people of IV4, hopefully they're handling it in a different direction. I mean, for us to do an MSBU, that's them taking the burden, and that's fine, and we can help them along and get the roads. But if they were misled or lied to, that would be a legal issue handled in a different direction.
Yeah, it's a civil class action, which I believe some of the residents are pursuing against various parties. And the other issue is that I have met with the Water Management District, FWC, DEP, Forestry. I'm missing one. No, it was just us. So it was 5 of us. So I have met with each of those agencies, and we are all collaborating and pursuing as many things as we can to bring the other parties to the table so we can have an equitable solution. Because to my mind, the equitable solution is that any homes that need to be condemned, the homeowners should not pay for that because they built on the low-level lots. Anyone that builds houses knows better than to build on low-level lots. It's going to cause problems if you don't have DRAs. And the Water Management District, as much as sometimes we complain about them, we're very good to say that there's a lesser standard that they may be willing to go to reduce the cost of stormwater, which I was very grateful for that gesture on their part. So, provisional gesture. Commissioner Kennard.
Yeah, I would like to see us not proceed with the outside counsel. I think that's those are general revenue dollars that we should not be spending on this neighborhood. And I do want to see us come forward with an MSBU that I fully intend on supporting. I would like for us to find a way to allow the homes that are substantially complete to be able to be finished up so those people can make the conversion from their construction loan to a permanent loan. Right now, they're held in limbo over, as Commissioner Finnegan expressed, they bought a lot and a home on a dirt road, and now we have changed the rules in the middle of the game, and they're stuck in a position that they can't get out of. So I would like to see us find a way to allow those folks whose homes are substantially complete to be able to finish their homes, make their conversion, and move into the house on a dirt road that they thought they were purchasing. If I have my way, they will have an MSBU coming their way, and they will get paved roads, a stormwater system, and this problem goes away permanently. That's not going to sit well with many people because it will be a substantial MSBU, but it needs to be done so that this neighborhood can have the roads that they should and proper stormwater drainage.
I had the same thoughts as you on the houses already in progress, but for, swimming pools or whatnot. But Madam Attorney, would you like to address the pitfalls of that?
Well, it's just difficult to, it's certainly difficult for staff to determine which ones you would want to exclude and which ones you would want to include in the stoppage. And then it's a matter of, I think that there's some distrust with some folks that are operating out there, and I don't know how we would parse out who's telling the truth and who's not, because we don't seem to get a straight answer from the people out there that are doing the building. I don't think there are any, I've heard of few instances where we've gotten emails where the individual homeowners were requesting it rather than the builder. But I think it would be hard, and it's hard to substantiate the need for the stoppage if you're going to let some not stop. My understanding is the board is taking this action because of the public health, safety, and welfare of the people in the neighborhood.
Yes.
And so how do you justify letting some not comply with that? If it's that important that we need to have the building stopped, then we need to have the building stopped for everyone.
You did not tell me the staff difficulty issue, which I don't care about staff difficulty other than we got to get permitting fixed before we throw anything else on their shoulders. However, the point that you had made is that we're leaving a huge hole people that they can drive a truck through is the problem from a legal standpoint. That how do we justify issuing some but not all permits? So that would be the issue, but you have the floor.
Yeah, I would say it may be difficult, but it's not impossible.
Mhm.
We just need to figure out what standards that we're going to set that would be the threshold for a home that's substantially complete. We don't need to make that sausage up here on the dais. That's stuff that staff could come forward with and say, this is going to be the threshold. Is this enough that we would consider this home substantially complete to allow those folks to move forward with? You know, does it have a roof? Does it have windows? Is it just lacking the flooring and paint on the walls? Or whatever that might look like, it seems reasonable enough that we would be able to come up with those to allow, it can't be more than a handful of homes to be able to be finished out there. And for
Have you
those
driven
folks,
out there?
what's that?
Have you driven out there? There's a whole lot of half-finished homes.
Half-finished homes and substantially complete are two different things.
Okay.
You know, the threshold for substantially complete would be it's very close to being moved into. Block walls up and windows in is not substantially complete. They are nowhere near finishing their house.
Madam Attorney has
Yep.
something on her mind.
So Eric just reminded me, if a house is under construction, it has a permit and it can finish, it can continue until it's finished. The only thing that people are not getting is perhaps the accessory structures, which would be like a swimming pool, for example. But if a house is partially done, they already have the permit. So it's just we're not issuing new permits.
Okay, so why would we not? Because many of those homes, when their pool is included in the initial construction loan, they've got to have that complete before they can make the transition from a construction loan to a permanent loan. So if the house is complete and it's just the accessory structure of a swimming pool, I would think there's your threshold. If the house, finish the house under the existing permit, then issue the permit for the swimming pool so that those folks can make that conversion over to their permanent loan.
How legally perilous is that?
I think that it can be, it's much more sustainable than excising out certain new permits. This is an accessory structure, and hopefully that accessory structure was identified on the original
Yeah. If
plan
it's,
or in the initial loan paperwork or something that staff can look at and say, you know, this was already, you know, in the works, or it was already permitted, or this is an accessory. And I guess it would just be like, I mean, really, swimming pools is the only thing I can think of. So maybe you just say swimming pools.
if it's, I mean,
I
if
don't
it's,
think they need a
yeah.
shed to occupy or a,
Right. Yeah, that stuff wouldn't be on the original plans. If it was on the original plans, then let them move forward with it. But, you know, a standalone, single-family home out there now that comes in and says, well, we want to add a swimming pool, that wouldn't make the cut.
You yielding
Yeah,
the
I'm
floor?
done. Yeah.
Commissioner Bays.
I guess my question is, if one of these homes happens to be in the glide path of something that needs to be taken for drainage, you're adding more cost to it.
I thought, go ahead and address that, but I thought there was just a standard whatever valuation that as soon as they even pour the slab, we have to pay for the full house or something like that. Someone told me that on staff.
well, I think when you're looking at condemnation,
Yes,
which
for
is what that,
condemnation.
which is what that is, yes, if they're permitted to build a house, for example, we've already got, you know, they've already got plans, they've already got, you know, whatever, so that they already have a slab, then that price of that house is fixed. What Commissioner Bays, I think, is saying is that, you know, now we're adding a more value to it by
And
adding a
is that
swimming
true?
pool.
The condemnation, it would increase the value.
Absolutely,
Okay.
because you have to pay for everything.
Yeah.
Plus their attorney's fees, plus. It's very expensive when we do condemnation.
Yes, I know. Commissioner Kennard, you look like you have something on your mind.
Nope, it's a great point.
Okay. So, I made a motion to add 90 days to the current one. Is there anybody second it?
I did.
Okay, thank you. Is there any revisions anyone would like to make, or should I call the vote?
Are we doing away with the outside counsel?
Yes, I will add to do away with, not do away with outside counsel, the contract for the outside counsel. Yes.
I just have to take a moment. I understand the action y'all are about to take, but I just have to say that I don't know where the miscommunication was between my office and outside counsel's office. I'm taking full responsibility for that, having not gotten started yet.
And she has not started it yet.
She has not, and we both freaked out
Okay.
yesterday over it. So I think that it's
So I will amend my motion that we will cancel the contract with outside counsel on this matter.
And I'll amend my second.
Do you have anything further? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Let's back up the wagon to committee reports. Advisory. Advisory. Okay, yes. All right, who wants to go first? Anyone?
I have nothing.
You have nothing?
Nothing.
It's not really, I don't have a report, but, and I don't know where you want me to do this, but.
Well,
maybe-
we have
maybe the-
individual,
okay,
we have
I'll wait
individual
then.
commissioners. This is
All
just for committee reports. I don't think I have anything. I need to look at my calendar, but why don't you lead off, or let me go back to Commissioner Finnegan. Do you have anything?
No, ma'am.
Commissioner Kennard?
No.
All right, you're up.
Well, I'm gonna look to the ends of me since it's the water districts and and more to that end down there. That the quiet zone signs that were put up in Homosassa. I'm not I don't really understand how this works. I think apparently when boats launch at a ramp, they get some sort of a text message. Is that correct?
Never heard that.
It was brought to my attention that I guess, although these have helped, I guess they've only written some warnings that people aren't quite aware of what the quiet zone means. So it was
speak to that.
suggested to me that maybe putting another sign up, and I thought that's where we ran into some difficulties with FWC or whoever was doing that about that. But if somebody's literally launching a boat and they're getting a text message for their payment or whatever they're doing on that, maybe we should add or look at doing something that talks about the quiet zones and what that means. And I'm just making that suggestion to you all. It's certainly your wheelhouse. I'm out doing fence post and
I think that's brilliant.
May I? Commissioner Bays, I feel like that is a phenomenal idea. Such wisdom from the end over there.
It's getting a little deep in here.
But let me comment on the quiet zone signs. I think there was a lot of misinformation. Like people are all up in arms. I'm going to go out with my airboat. Airboats are fine. People did not understand that not one person cared when you go outside. There was a lot of different noises. It was psychological torture inside of homes from morning till night. We couldn't have this conversation inside of a house from morning till night. It has helped tremendously. Now, there's some bad actors that when they leave, they want to blare past the whole zone as long as there's not a deputy because they feel like, well, I'm leaving, I'll be gone by the time someone calls. So you're always going to have that. You're going to put out a speed limit sign that says 35 miles per hour and someone's going to blow through at 80. It's going to happen. But this was probably the best thing that could have happened for the Homosassa River. Still a lot of people having fun, but you know what I'm noticing? Families are coming back. Families are commenting. Like, this is so wonderful. Thank you all for doing this. It's not just the residents that are happy. It's tourists and people that are visiting. It ends some of the mayhem. There was a different July 4th weekend that it was that sort of psychological torture till 2 or 3 in the morning. That's not happening now. They're getting scooted out of the area, coming back from scalloping, and glad I missed it. I think some of those party people were told to leave. There was a lady naked on the boat dancing all the way down the river. So there were unspeakable things happening in a very protected zone. So those quiet zone signs, even with just the warnings that are given, are really making the difference. I think people are, oh, they're sitting blaring by a sign, and then the deputy comes, oh, I thought it was on the other side of the sign. I don't buy that, but it's still working. It's helping. But your idea, I don't know, Marisol, if we could look into that, I think is
We would
phenomenal.
need to contact the vendor, Premium Parking, and see if that's doable. But it's a great idea, and I'm
Maybe
glad
even
that it's
something
working.
yeah, and it may be something too that you want to add in there about the scallops. Maybe you provide them a link that talks about it, and diver in the water and the size of scallops. But it's an informational tool that maybe we could just utilize better.
Slow with diver down flags, something. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. And as seasons change, maybe too, for information. Good job.
So I remember when we first talked about this, the woman with a pacemaker that had to leave her home because the noise was setting her pacemaker off, and that the gas seals in the windows had broken. The Energy Star, that's appliances, but whatever, the double windows for energy efficiency, the gas seals were being destroyed by the reverberations of music. And I can't tell you how incredibly delighted I am to hear that this worked.
Thank you all. Yes.
So that really makes my heart happy. So awesome.
Madam Chair?
And I think that's a great idea, Rebecca.
I just want to add a little bit more to the conversation. The idea behind it, it sounds like it's working. I've not been down the Homosassa at all. But the idea behind it was not to write tickets, but to give deputies a tool to be able to approach the party and just quiet it down. It's give out all the warnings you want. We're not looking for a revenue stream out of tickets, but just quiet it down so that everybody gets to enjoy the river and living on the river, or boating on the river, whatever it might be. It sounds to me like it's working. I love the idea of the text message. I don't know if they get one or not when they launch, but obviously the launch, the vendor that's collecting that launch fee is getting pictures of those license plates to make sure that they've either paid or that they have an annual pass. And so if shooting a text message out is something that could be added to that, that'd be a great idea for voter safety, the quiet zone, that type of thing.
And to your point, Commissioner Kennard, I believe I was the one who said nothing kills a party buzz like the cops showing up.
Yeah. Just quiet it down. It's not a library, but it's not a nightclub either.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Anybody have anything further? All right. Open to, or I guess I'm blowing right by Madam Attorney.
I have nothing, thank you.
Okay. Open to the public. Would anyone like to speak to the board? Going once, going twice? All right. Our next regular meeting is July 25th, right here at 1 p.m. Then August 8th at 1 p.m., August 22nd at 1 p.m. We have our preliminary budget hearing Wednesday, July 26th. There's 3 back-to-back, 8:30 a.m. for the Special Library District, 8:45 for the Fire Protection Special District, and 9 a.m. for BOCC. Strategic Planning Status Update, Tuesday, August 15th at 10 a.m. Tentative Budget Hearing, Thursday, September 7th at 5:01 in Lecanto Government Building, Room 166. And I should have said all those other meetings were right here except for that one. Final budget hearing is here, September 26th at 5:01. And the Citrus Elected Leadership Summit is Tuesday, October 3rd at 9 a.m. And we are going to recess until 5:01. Who would like to
Yes, ma'am. So the first item on your agenda is OA-23-01 for your 501s. And at the conclusion of this public hearing, you're going to be asked to consider an ordinance of Citrus County, Florida political. It's very long. I'm just letting y'all know this. You buckle up. An ordinance of Citrus County, Florida, political subdivision of the state of Florida, amending ordinance number 2012-06, the Citrus County Land Development Code, as amended by amending Section 1603, Director of the Land Development Division, Section 1604, Director of the Department of Public Works, Section 2200, Minimum Lot Requirements for All Uses, Section 2300, Building Setback Requirements and Height Requirements for All Land Use District, amending Section 2401, the Low Intensity Coastal and Lakes District, CL, Section 2402, the Rural Residential District, RUR, Section 2403, Coastal and Lakes Residential District, CLR, Section 2404, Central Ridge Residential District, CRR, Section 20, CRR. I'm sorry, I make myself chuckle. Section 2405, Low Density Residential District, LDR, Section 2406, Medium Density Residential District, MDR, Section 2407, High Density Residential District, HDR, Section 2408, Planned Residential Development District, PDR, Section 2409, Professional Service Office District, PSO, Section 2410, Coastal and Lakes Commercial District, Section 2411, Neighborhood Commercial District, NEC, Section 2412, General Commercial District, GNC, Section 2413, Light Industrial District, LIND, Section 2414, Heavy Industrial District, IND, Section 2415, Extractive District, EXT, Section 2416, Public Semi-Public Institutional District, PSI, Section 2417, Transportation Communication Utilities District, TCU, Section 2418, Residential District, REC, Section 2419, Agricultural District, AGR, Section 2420, Conservation District, CON, Section 2421, Mobile Home Park District, MHP, Section 2422, Recreational Vehicle Park Campground District, RVP, Section 2423, Port District, Section 2500, Types of Uses, and Section 7120, Residential Subdivision Criteria, providing for severability, providing for conflicts of law, providing for codification, providing for modifications that may arise from consideration at public hearing, providing for scrivener's errors, and providing for an effective date. And I believe we have Ms. Coutu here to make the presentation.
Well done, Madam Attorney.
PRR. That's okay. All right, so it sounds like a lot. It's not. There's not a lot of substantial changes here.
It was a lot for
It was
me.
a lot for her to read, but it's not a lot of changes. And I'm going to go over some of the highlights. A lot of it is cleanup. But so up there, first of all, is clarification that my office does not make official interpretations for stormwater or water connections. Once upon a time, stormwater was under land development, and that's why the Land Development Code says that, but I'm not crazy enough. I'm not an engineer, and I'm not going to try to go out of my lane. So this clarifies that when it is an interpretation of stormwater or something else like utilities, that those directors would do that and not myself. We're adding back in some language that we removed unintentionally on a previous ordinance amendment. It's about encroachments with eaves. We had a lot of discussion at the planning board. They hashed these out. The Board of County Commissioners approved it, and then a following ordinance amendment, we removed it in error. So this puts back the exact language that the Board of County Commissioners previously approved that allows eave encroachments. You can have eaves, and they can go into the side yards, etc. So this is one that is new. This is consideration of waterfront setbacks for pools and specifically for in-ground pools. Now, the Board of County Commissioners changed the waterfront setbacks, and it has really made a difference. We went from 26, 30, 35 variances a year to so far we have one this year, and it wasn't for waterfront setbacks. Unbelievably changed. So what we did is what the County Commission did is you can look at the six closest uses of similar nature and look at their setbacks, take an average, but no closer than on either side. So that dealt with being able to have view, plus you're getting neighborhood character. It is really working. People are able to work with that, and we're not getting complaints about it. They're happy. I'm happy because staff has a lot less to process. PDC is happy because they're not seeing variances. It's working really well. But one thing that we did is we also said that for slabs and decks on grade without railings, they can go up to 15 feet, regardless of next door, regardless of the area. They get a special pass. They're on grade. They're special.
commercial, they can go 15 feet. But we didn't include pools in that. And the reason we didn't include pools at the time was because, as the PDC has said again at this new hearing, most people in the water are going to want enclosures. There's bugs, you're going to want enclosures. That defeats the whole purpose of that 15-foot special default. So the PDC, you can see the yellow. The yellow is reflecting, and also in the attachments, what the PDC added in after staff's comments. So what they said is that if you're on a seawall, and you don't have a vegetative buffer, but you have an in-ground pool, and it's on natural grade without enclosures. So that was talked about quite a bit at the PDC, that there are people that are doing the terrace pools, or they want to have them level with their second floor deck or something. That defeats the whole purpose. Those need to meet the average of the area. They don't get that 15-foot special provision. So that's why they were very specific that if you want that 15-foot, forget the area, you can go up to 15-foot period for in-ground pools. It has to be on natural grade and not have an enclosure. So that's what the PDC suggested, and we can talk about that now or talk about these all at the end, whatever you'd rather.
Looks like you can carry on.
Okay, I'll carry on. All right, so the land use tables have a lot of changes, but they're not substantial. So what I was proposing to do is take out these headings. See the residential and you see institutional. Those are in every land use district. The reason I wanted to take them out is one of the less enjoyable parts of my job is testifying at code compliance hearings. And I hear a lot from people that say, well, it says institutional, so I can do any institutional, or it says residential, so I can do any, even though it's not one of the listed uses. So I was trying to clarify that those headings were simply to help staff, frankly. The PDC disagreed, and so did Mr. Hall with the CCBA had a lot of input on this application, and I very much appreciated. So we put them back in, but what we added was uses listed below, trying to clarify. It doesn't mean you have all residential uses. It means you're really specific. We also added that note on all of them. That was also from Mr. Hall. The uses noted may have additional requirements. So even though it might say bed and breakfast here, there's a whole nother bed and breakfast section you also have to meet. You'll see accessory structure. We also added some language there. I wanted that to go away because I see people at code compliance that say it says accessory structure, so I can have a shed and I don't need a house. No, you have to have that principal thing in place first. So we added the language, must have principal residential structure in place. And you're going to see that on every one of the land use tables, this kind of criteria. You can see the yellow where we did add back in the headings. We also removed some uses. For example, there's dance hall. I am not even sure what that is anymore, except I watch an old movie and see it. Those kind of uses are still in here. We took them out. We changed beauty parlor and beauty salon. Really not substantial. What we did do substantial. All right, we have a new use called event venue. And the reason is these are like you think of the barn weddings and those kind of things. We're getting a lot of requests for that, and we don't have any provisions in our code for it outside of the commercial districts. So when we usually get requests for that, they're in the rural residential, they're in the agricultural, they're in the neighborhood commercial, but those don't allow it right now. So what's being proposed, and that's up to you, these are a big deal. We haven't permitted them before outside of commercial. So in rural residential, you'd have to get a conditional use. That stops at the planning board. And in coastal lakes commercial, neighborhood commercial, recreation, and agricultural, that's not the right to farm, this is agricultural zoning, they would have to have a PUD, meaning they have to come before you guys. We did want to make it this with PUDs because these are really going to be site specific. We've had people talk about they want to have people bring in RVs. We've had others that want cabins. We've had others that say no lodging at all. We had somebody that wanted to have people stay in the water on a lake and have floating platforms. A lot of ideas out there. They're going to be very much case by case. That's why a PUD is pretty important on that. So that's a brand new use. We don't have it right now. It's up to you if you want to do it, or we can just keep treating them as event halls like we do in the commercial areas.
Yes, Commissioner Finnegan.
We had talked a little bit, Joanna, and thank you for that. I just want to make sure. So if it's an event venue in rural area with housing or not with housing, does it even matter? But it always just stops at the PDC?
And that's what's proposed, but not housing. In rural residential, it wouldn't allow housing at all. It would just be the event venue, and you wouldn't stay there overnight. If they want to have, that's what staff's proposing. We can change that. But that would be a conditional use, stops at the PDC. If you want to have the lodging, I think you probably should come to y'all with a PUD. That's more intense. The rural residential, I think, is probably going to be more impacting on surrounding residences than, say, coastal lakes commercial.
I personally, I feel like whether it's an event venue with or without lodging in all categories, that it should come here.
Okay.
I feel like we appreciate the PDC for reviewing all this and digging into the details and giving their opinion, but they're not elected by the citizens. So if something goes in or is proposed, the citizens want to reach out to their commissioners, but we wouldn't have a say, and that doesn't make any sense to me. And for, a conversation for another day, but all of our advisory boards, and there was a board when I first got on, we were voting on for aviation, encouraging background checks and different things, but we're not doing any of that. So they're not elected. We're not doing background checks. It's just like, hey, it's available. We don't know you, but your resume looks okay. Maybe we verified it. Maybe we didn't. We just, until we firm that up, when we're talking about changes in the county and the people are so sensitive with all the changes right now, my opinion is it all comes to us.
Okay, do we have kind of a consensus on that?
Madam
Maybe.
Attorney?
Great points. I'm on board.
Madam Attorney?
Mine is not about that issue, but something that Commissioner said. So if you want to finish this, and then I can.
So I immensely value the heavy lifting that the PDC does for us, but we don't always vote the same way that they do. And I think that Commissioner Finnegan explained that very well. And so I would be inclined, I want us to keep a close eye on everything that's happening in this county right now with all the growth explosion.
Okay.
So what I was.
We have one chance to get this right for a lot of cases.
Yes.
Yes.
What I was just going to say is I just wanted to point out a distinction between the PDC and some of your other voluntary boards. Because the PDC does make final decisions, they are considered, they have to file a Form 1, just like y'all do. They have to give financial disclosures. So it's a little bit different with the PDC than, say, like the Transportation Disadvantaged something or other board, because they do take final governmental action. So that's all I wanted to say.
And some of the positions have actual certifications. So there's in there engineers on there, realtors, there's different positions for that board.
Yes.
So they have, a large number of them have to have professional credentials to even be qualified for the board.
To my point, are those credentials being vetted?
That would be a staff question.
And you can give your finances, but when we all ran, I'm sure that everybody looked into everything. It's all published, but that doesn't happen. And so, I think and that's why I go back to any board, and especially that one if they're making final decisions. And I think there's one other board that does that, water or something.
Yes, the Water and Wastewater Authority.
Yeah. So I don't. Again, conversation for another day.
I agreed with you. Yes.
Yeah. Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. But for a conversation for another day, we need to be vetting and doing some better checks. In
Do
my
you guys
humble
want
opinion.
us to put that on your outstanding list?
I could bring it up at another board meeting if that. However we do that, yeah, I would. I mean, if you all are okay looking into that or wanting to talk about it some other time.
I think that there's a pretty wide variety in the various committees in terms of
Sure.
how critical it is to, some of them we just need volunteers,
Sure.
historical board and things like that.
But for today, I mean, I don't know how we do this with consensus or how we make a change to what's proposed, but I would like to see that changed.
I'm good with that. Commissioner Bays? Okay.
Yep.
All right, moving right along. You
Okay.
can make that change, yes?
Thank you.
So those will go to PUDs.
The RUR would also be a PUD, that's without lodging, and then the other CLC, NEC, REC, and AGR would be proposed with PUD already. Okay, so the other major change in the land use tables deal with car washes and mini warehouses. Right now in the CLC and GNC area, they are conditional uses. They stop with the Planning Development Commission. So we're far ahead of you here on this one. We're proposing to change those to PUDs. They would come before you. They are not allowed at all in light industrial, which is kind of unusual because that's why we're looking at them more, as they are a more intense use. So instead of not being listed, we're proposing to change that to a permitted use in light industrial areas. And then PSI is public, semi-public, institutional. Those sometimes were county-owned parcels, county-owned, and it was permitted by right. I don't think that's appropriate, so we're taking that out. That's not really something the county is in business of doing as car washes and mini warehouses. So
I do have a question on the light industrial. So we're going from not, it's going to be permittable to
it would
put-
be permittable in light
So
industrial.
we have from what I understand from our economic development professionals, that we have very little property that is zoned for light industrial, and mini storage is not a good employer. So that's not, to my mind, highest and best use of light industrial.
Okay, we don't do highest and best use, but point taken, understood.
I-
I don't agree with him that we don't have a lot of light industrial, but I think he's looking for larger parcels that are more conducive to development. We have some industrial parks that haven't been developed yet. There are some, but I can certainly take that off and not have it allowed at all in light industrial.
I want us to have sign off on where they go. That,
Okay.
personally speaking, not that if it's a very small parcel that could never be, it's never going to get picked up by a major employer, then okay. But
So you want to PUD as well there? It sounds appropriate, maybe?
would any of my colleagues like to weigh in on this? Either
Yeah.
PUD or not.
We
allowed
can
on
do the
the
PUD for the LI&D too, since we already do for GNC. Yeah,
Yes. Okay.
okay. And then PSI actually not allowing it at all. One more change to point out to you that it's more major. We're taking out the word preferred here for parcels that are less than 70, actually greater than or equal to 75 unit subdivisions. When we have residential subdivisions, it's rare to see one that's more than 75 units unless it's already in a development. We expect that from Citrus Hills. We expect that from some of the other areas like that. We have one that currently in-house now that is not part of a subdivision, yet they're doing more than 75 units, and their access point is not a collector. It's a local roadway. This says preferred, so they are allowed to do it. Not anticipated engineering definitely is recommending removing this word preferred and saying, if you're doing 75 or more units, you need to come off of a major road. So that's what this change is.
That's a very good change.
Yeah, it hasn't come up before as long as I can remember, but here it is. So that's all the major things that I had to point out here. I'll be glad to take any questions, though.
Any other comments, questions, board? Nope.
Nothing.
All right.
I do have one question on the accessory structures. I know that a few months back, I had a complaint about someone that brought in a container and put it in their backyard as an accessory structure. How is that being addressed?
And I've heard that complaint, and I can only get so many on one, but I do have another ordinance amendment coming, just so Miss Lynn can read a long thing like that again. I think it's going to start in September in PDC, so probably before you in October, and one of those is we used to have pods removed as an accessory structure. They're allowed temporarily while you're moving or under construction, but not permanently as accessory structures. Proposing to remove that option. So you can have a shed, but not a permanent pod.
Yeah, because this was like an 8x40, if my memory serves me correctly. It was large and not on an extremely large residential lot. And it was in the middle of a neighborhood. And I was like,
Right.
I think we talked about that, and that's how
Right.
the amendment came
We already
up.
have an accessory structures. If it's less than 2 acres and more than 1,200 square feet in size, it has to be compatible with the color and materials of the house. We have that already, but this must have been probably just over 2 acres, maybe. This is the size.
No, it
Yeah.
was a small lot.
it was a small
Okay.
lot.
Yeah, they would have had to be
it's
compatible
that
with it.
Big, that's basically an intermodal container that
Yeah.
goes on railroad, ships, et cetera.
Yeah, well, we can take a look at that, but that's what's proposed coming to you, is to not allow those pods at all as accessories. I mean, I know there's people in business for that, so I'm sure they'll have some input, but.
So we're supposed to have a motion on this. However, do you need to bring it back clean for us to vote on, or what do you
No,
wanna
I
do?
think there's somebody in the public here, at least one that wants to talk. But yeah.
Okay.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
if I might, I would like just a little bit more clarification for myself than on the awnings. I believe it was the, on page
Eaves.
602 of 749.
Eves?
Yes.
Right, okay, so, this was something that it allows awnings to encroach up to 3 feet in front and rear setbacks. So at the time, awnings could only, before we changed this, awnings could only be in the front yard. And people had them in the rear, they have eaves on the side of their houses, and it was running into some problems with permitting because, eaves obviously were happening. And especially for the variance, it came up with a lot of discussion about variance, and that's why we made that change to the code, because we were only allowing them front yards on the code. That wasn't really ideal.
Okay.
We do have the 3 feet limitation because you can call it an eave and it's 10 feet out. You know, it's not really an eave, but, so that's why the 3 feet.
Okay, thank you.
Anything further before I open to the public? All right, would anybody like to speak at open to the public? Or public comment, I should say.
Public comment. Hi, Commissioners. Karen Esty, nice seeing you. Commissioner Finnegan, I'm glad you brought up that all these should really come back to you, especially in coastal lakes, rural residential, and agriculture. As reviewing this myself, I look at it as you're adding actually small businesses within these areas. And in addition to that, well, like in coastal lakes, we need to be very careful. You already have areas in this county where you can put certain things that will not impact these coastal lakes, so our ecosystems can continue to flourish. You know, the county receives millions of dollars every year to clean up these areas, and there's no reason to continue to impact them with uses that may possibly do that. In addition to that, please think about compatibility for all of these areas. When you add PUDs and you have venues and you have, then they want to have places to stay. Think about if you have just, and I explained this to somebody else, if you had a piece of agriculture and you lived on one side and your neighbor on the other, and you wanted to have all of these activities go on. Now, on the other side, you know, I have a farm and I have to go out there and get up early and I have workers come in and I have to dist the land. So what's it going to be when we have people in these venues coming and, you know, having a good time? Mm-hmm. There's nothing wrong with that. But you have to be very careful not to create incompatibilities. So if you approve that, that's exactly what's going to happen. And it really should be on a case-by-case basis on all of these. And also, I just wanted to add that you're also increasing density within these areas as a matter of right. You know, you're putting, you know, places to stay. So it's very important to, like you said, Commissioner Davis, be very careful about what you allow in this county. We have a lot of growth going on. We can't afford to make mistakes at this point and put things where they don't belong. People are, you know, there's trendy things going on. And decisions should not be based on what's trending now, because there's very few people who, if these are approved, will be able to actually take action on them, and then the rest of the people will have to put up with what's going on in their neighborhood. So I ask you to be very careful, thoughtful of everybody around you. I'm sure you've heard horror stories before. And also, I have to get over to the Inverness Council meeting because there's something I have to speak on there. And I just wanted to say on your next item on T2? I support 100% transportation fees. We need that. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Karen. Anyone else like to comment? All right. We can do a motion with the amendments?
Right, for the 2 amendments we have is the RUR would be a PUD instead of a conditional use for event venues, and in light industrial car washes and mini warehouses would also be a PUD.
Okay. And in light industrial?
Yes, that's what, yeah.
Okay, got it. Thank you. Would anybody care to make a motion?
Madam Chair?
Mm-hmm.
I make a motion to direct the chair and the clerk to execute the ordinance for OA-23-01 with the changes that we discussed here today. Second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Any further board comment? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, T2. We're back.
Yes, sorry, my fault. Eric with Growth Management. Sorry, go ahead.
Public hearing, you're going to be asked to consider an ordinance of Citrus County, Florida, political subdivision of the state of Florida, amending the fee schedule of Chapter 54 of the Citrus County Code, also known as the Citrus County Impact Fee Ordinance, for transportation, providing for severability, providing for scrivener's errors, providing for codification and inclusion into the Code of Ordinances, providing for modification that may arise from consideration at public hearing, and providing for an effective date.
Yes, Madam Chair, Commissioners, we brought this before you at your last meeting. You voted to increase impact fees to 100%, but procedurally, we did not include in the motion to direct the chair and the clerk to execute the ordinance.
And to adopt the ordinance.
We didn't do it as an ordinance, so my fault. So we're going to go through the full process, correct? Public hearing. So we'll do it all properly this time. Staff did an extraordinary needs study. It showed that there was an extraordinary need based on the growth in the community and the lack of transportation funds. So they recommended 100% transportation impact fees. Happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Madam Chair?
Yes,
Motion
ma'am.
to approve T2A and B.
I have to do public comment first.
We gotta do a public hearing, sorry.
Everybody's
Get it moving along.
chomping at the bit. I'm sitting there going,
This actually
Let's-
doesn't say
let's
public
go to
hearing on
public hearing,
mine.
open it up.
So just open it up for public comment?
It's a public hearing, ma'am. I'm sorry, it doesn't say that on your script.
Okay, do I need to say anything legally or just say
No,
what
just
anybody?
open it up for
Okay.
public comment.
Anybody here to
Yes.
speak for the public? Okay. Mike? Okay, now, close public comment and take it away.
Madam Chair, motion to approve T2A and B.
Second.
And there's nothing else that needs to be read in to not have to come back to this?
No, ma'am.
Okay, excellent. Any board comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. And we are adjourned.
So much bigger than I thought.
Thanks for being gentle with me, everyone.
Great first chair meeting.